Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world. This is the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast brought to you by Box 1971.
Where we're changing the culture of the fire service.
One fireman at a time.
And those are the two unmistakable voices of Phil Larimore and Big John Chamberlain. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me. Phil Larimore here. I'm always excited every time I get the chance to come down here to Oxford, North Carolina. Firehouse 71. It's like going to Disney World, Disneyland, New York City, Times Square. It's a blast coming down here. I love this place.
You know, coming to Firehouse 71, you're always welcome here. The Brotherhood, the cold beer, I mean adult beverages,
and don't forget those things that are in our hands right now.
The cigars, man.
Yeah, cigars.
This is Brotherhood at its finest, and it's nice to get around the kitchen table and solve the world's problems.
We do it monthly.
Well, they say that, you can solve all the world's problems around a firehouse kitchen table or at EMS shift change sitting on a stretcher in the back of the bus.
Absolutely.
But you're right, and that's one of the things that I love about being a member of Box 1971, John, is brotherhood. A lot of people in this world talk it, they preach it, they can spell it out, and they can define it, but they don't act it out. They don't actually
live it.
And we see that brotherhood here at 1971, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of this agency.
Amen. I got to tell you, you brought up the kitchen table. This is the first podcast at Firehouse 71, in the kitchen at Firehouse 71, at the kitchen table that was custom made by Curtis for Box 1971. So I have to say that this table looks amazing. John, I think you're going to get a picture of it later. We'll try to post it on social media.
I will.
But what a fabulous job he did. This month's special guest is, boy, there's a lot to talk about. I've got a list of stuff here, a laundry list, but we've all known him for a couple years here at Box 1971. He is a very familiar face. He is a fire department chaplain, a sheriff's chaplain, a police chaplain, a hospital chaplain. He's also a pastor of his own church.
Well, amen.
Amen.
And a darn good dude.
And fun to be around. And he is married to a Milwaukee Bucks dancer.
A beautiful woman,
How
I will
about
say.
that?
Miss Dawn Marie. And that's my fun fact. I said, how cool is your chaplain? But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Reverend Dr. Tolokun Omokunde. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I feel important. Matter of fact, I may sing or any number of things before I leave today. This a microphone and guys who know what they're doing around me. I appreciate it. And Phil brings back memories.
Yes, sir.
I have to start off with this. It was September 11th, 9/11. Let's
Yes,
call
sir.
it that.
Yes, sir.
I was sitting in my office, and I had an office in a monastery, and I was teaching kids, GED students, helping them pass the GED. Some of the roughest kids in the world. Like one girl was in a gang. She'd been in several homes, group homes, and it was an exciting day. The first call I got was a girl was trying to make out with her, and she wasn't having that.
Your routine normal Tuesday
Right.
day.
So when I get
Tuesday morning.
exactly when I get to the kitchen, she has a butcher knife and a meat cleaver. And I convinced the other girl that she might want to change her preference and deal with some boys that day, because this girl was not having none of that. We became friends later on, and I convinced her when she was about 40 to go to college.
That's
She
cool.
went to college and graduated, got married and lost her husband after 2 years of marriage to COVID recently.
Wow.
But then I went back to my office, and we never knew people's real names. They called me Choke growing up.
Oh.
They called me Choke and Fire Chief. The football coach called me Fire Chief. My friends called me Choke. One guy started off by saying I looked like an artichoke, and that was Hawk who said that, and then Doret,
I was wondering what he meant by Chuck.
and then Doret said I ate peanut butter without no jelly and stuff. So that was
That'll make you choke. You
That's
at
a
least got to
choke
have a glass of
sandwich.
milk with it.
But Doret called me, and Doret said, "Choke, what's going on, man?" I said I don't want to hear nothing about this tower stuff and all this mess. I said, this stuff don't affect me.
That's right.
And he said, Choke, you need to sit down. He said, you remember Tune? I said, man, I remember Tune. I said, Tune was, his name was James Debonair. And he was from like one of the Louisiana. And Tune sang with a group called Appreciations. And Tune was always smart dresser, always talking about money, majoring in economics and stuff like that. And he said, well, Tune went back to school. Back to school for what? Tune, he had everything. He was in corporate America. And so he said, but Tune went back to school to get a teacher's certificate. I said, a teacher's certificate? What Tune want to teach for? Tune fell in love with kids in elementary school. I said, well, then what happened? What's Tune doing these days? Well, Tune had won the National Geographic Mentor of the Year award.
Wow.
And he was going to take his mentee, like a fifth grade or something. They were going out to California. I said, yeah, what happened? He said, Tune's plane hit the Pentagon.
Oh, God.
So what I think I hear you saying initially, you said that this you had an attitude that this doesn't concern me.
Exactly.
But I think over time you were forced to realize that oftentimes we see things or encounter things in our lives that impact us, whereas up front we may not realize that they're about to impact
realize
us.
it. And I'm about to say that everything affects us.
Mm-hmm.
Everything affects us. Tune was my guy, man. Tune had all the ladies. They call him Tune because he could sing.
Sure.
The Appreciations sent that stuff to Motown. Motown said, hell no. And no, there's nowhere in the world we're going to let you compete with the Temptations and the Four Tops.
Because he'd make them look bad.
Right. And won't deal with it. I like Tune and Smoke and Dowd and the boys because whenever they needed money, by being president of the Student Christian Association, we didn't have anything to do with our money at school.
Yeah.
But the student government had to spend their money. So I was sitting on like $15,000 in 1968.
Good.
Wow.
More, that's a year's salary.
Right. And so they said, we need some money. Okay, you guys are going to perform for homecoming.
Hey, just real quick, Rev.
Yeah.
Just look this up.
Yeah.
That's $128,453.45.
Okay, that's
Whoa.
4 years salary. Sorry.
Go ahead,
right.
Rev.
That's
a
right.
lot of money in 1968, Rev.
Stand corrected.
And I could not believe that Tune, first of all, would give up 6 figures, almost 7-figure job to go teach school to some little black kids in D.C.
Yeah.
And that was Tune's nature, though. And then I said, okay, fine. Then I found about other people that did. About that gotten killed.
Now, your friend Toon, if I may interrupt
Yeah.
you, if he were still with us today, he'd be 75 also? Or
Yeah, about
same
little,
age
maybe,
as you, Doc?
Maybe a little older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't look 75.
Because see, I
Rev.
was playing.
No, he doesn't.
I was playing Dirty Hearts and chasing girls. I was about to flunk out, so I had to do some other things. Tune was getting his work, and he was getting his work, and he was studying. Tune at the funeral, the president, who was very a woman who was very stern and every stern and what have you, and we knew it was going to be a boring funeral because Dr. Yancey would be there, and the report says that she says, and I'm here for this occasion to remember James Debonair with his fine ass.
Wow.
And at that point,
Jaws hit the floor.
the jaws hit the floor and the funeral was on. It was on at that point. Everybody was relaxing. It was a serious celebration.
Yeah, we can finally be ourselves.
And his daughter even got up and said, well, good morning, dear. He was a single parent, and his daughter would say he would get up in the morning, greet her, get her ready for school and stuff, and he said, "Oh, your dress and outfit looks nice." She said, "Thank you, Daddy." He said, "But where the hell you think you're going with that short dress on?" And so he was a daddy too. And so what we did at Johnson C. Smith, everybody that lost there in 9/11 who lost their parent or firefighter 9/11 never had to worry about another scholarship a day in their life.
Nice.
Wow.
We paid for the rest of their education.
Wow.
So that was too deep, man. With that Tune, I mean, that was somebody you knew every day, you saw every day, and most people hadn't seen anybody that was in 9/11.
Well, I know you and I have known each other for several years, Reverend, and when I moved to North Carolina after my brief career in FDNY, I just assumed that because we're 500 plus miles from New York City, that folks down here could not relate to the 9/11 incident and didn't have any connection with the towers and the people who were involved in that incident. But over the years, I have learned that I'm not the only person here in North Carolina who experienced 9/11, and there's a lot of folks around me. You never know who they are, but there are a lot of folks around here who were greatly impacted by that event, whether they knew somebody or not.
We had at least 2 officers above lieutenant that had kids at Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte. I think maybe they could have been battalion chiefs. I'm not sure, or captains or something. But we didn't know we had that many kids in Johnson C. Smith that had firefighters in New York.
Well, I'm going to be rude, and if I am being rude, please forgive me. I'm going to jump 47 steps ahead of us. You know, the New York City Fire Department is predominantly Irish and Italian. The majority of the firefighters we lost, 343 people, were of those ethnic groups. But a lot of folks forget that this was an American thing. This wasn't a New York City Fire Department thing. This was not a New York City Police Department thing. This was an American thing. And we often forget that about 25 of the people we lost within the fire departments, 343, were African Americans, and there was an African American experience at the World Trade Center also.
Right.
You know what's scary to me, Rev, is we sit here and we talk about 9/11, and we are all a little longer in the tooth than the average bear, but there are now people on the job that weren't alive when the towers came down.
But you have to instill in them the culture and the guts and the attitude, as if they were on the job.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from you as a firefighter. First of all, I learned how to cuss and smoke cigars, and then and
You got that from Phil, right?
Yeah.
And
then I learned how to
size up a building.
size up a building, A, B, C, and D.
That's right. Tell it, Rev.
And then one day I can't wait to get there. This is 909. I got a new number now. I'm 909. This is 909. I'm first on the scene. I'm taking command. I'm going around the building. I've turned off the electricity, and I've disconnected the tank, methane tank.
Propane?
Propane tank, yeah. The propane tank. Well, now methane is a whole other story.
Yeah, that's what you get when you eat Mexican food.
That's what exactly. That's when Johnny sits down and then you light up the whole house, heat up the whole house. About when he flushes the toilet, the house heats up. But
Why is it spicy?
yeah, and I learned a lot of stuff. See, firefighters are a little different than the average folk. They had to live with each other. They had to depend on each other. Everybody else says they have to depend on each other in a gunfight or something. But I rather gunfight I can understand. But when the building is falling down on me,
Right.
I want somebody that
That's right.
somebody.
It takes a different
and it doesn't
mindset.
matter the gender, it doesn't matter their sexual orientation, their skin color, their religion. Every firefighter is your brother.
Right, and you got to learn
Supposed
how
to
to
be.
cook.
Supposed to be.
Supposed
Yes.
to be. You have to learn how to cook.
Yep.
And you have to learn how to cook exciting things in the firehouse. And
Make
and what have
coffee.
yeah, and make real coffee. And so it's very interesting. As a fire chaplain, I'm now studying more things, and there's a slight difference in police chaplain.
Yeah, but you, in my experience with you as being a chaplain and me being a deputy chief, you were more than just a chaplain. You were a confidant. You were somebody that guided decisions that didn't need to happen right that minute.
Right.
I probably leaned on you harder than I probably should have.
No,
but,
you were. I was a wannabe, and if I wanted to be something, it would be Jeremy.
No, quit
And
it.
so Jeremy could say things I couldn't say, and so after I looked at Myron Mixon for grilling and Wagyu steaks and stuff, right? Then I had Jeremy to look at for language. Between the two languages, my wife would say, "You need to watch Myron Mixon without being Myron Mixon." And she said, "Would you say these words in your aunt's house?" I said, "No." And so basically, you learn that everybody's not built the same way.
That's right.
Right.
And people can be serious as a heart attack about something. and other folk are not, and they don't understand why the person feels the way they feel,
Sure.
or whatever. It's because of some things they've been through. So I had to learn a lot, and the fire station I was at is very important because nobody had my ideology.
No.
Not one single person had my ideology. The one person I convinced died. And so basically,
That's a rough day.
it was a rough day. And so primarily, I could sit down and I could think some things. And I would say, no, don't say that out loud because folk wouldn't understand. I remember when
He
I
said that more than once. That was like a repeat button for
don't-
him.
Right. But then
Jeremy, don't do that.
I found out some things. The guys who were the biggest rednecks and I became the biggest friends.
Really?
Because when I needed something, I would call them, and I would hear screech. I would hang with the phone, screech. The truck would be pulling up, and then you learn some things. One guy wouldn't even speak to me. I remember one time, wouldn't even speak to me, and then one morning about 4 or 5 o'clock, I got to a scene, and he was there, and the engine was, the car was divided into half.
Oh gosh.
The engine was one place and the person was in another place. And he was saying there was nothing I could do. And I had to remind him that God got him there on the scene. And he talked to the victim, and the victim talked a little bit back to him, stayed conscious because he was talking to him. Then everybody else got there and got his help. And I remember the time he wouldn't. And then one time I needed to get a new car. My SUV was just, the transmission was gone. It wouldn't go in reverse. It wouldn't go. And the guy said, I can get you a great deal, but you can't. You have to drive the car up here. So this person took me and my SUV all the way to Durham,
Oh wow.
and a block away, he set it down, pointed it in the right direction, and I drove it into the place. I kept trying to pay him for a year before I realized he was not going to take any money.
Yeah, that's one thing with you is that you always try to make things right,
Yeah, you got to make
know,
things right.
even if it's just buying you a coffee or a
Yeah, don't cheat people.
yeah,
Right.
And that comes down to your personal ethos is that you're wired just a little bit differently, which makes it. Not every fire department has a chaplain.
Yeah,
And some fire departments that have a chaplain have one in name only.
exactly.
They do not have a working chaplain. I would say, given my experience with you over the last 5 years, that you're a working chaplain.
Yeah, I like to put on red lights and go real fast. Now they say I can put on red lights, but I can't go real fast. So I've slowed down.
Well,
And I get there the same amount of time. I said, man, if I'd have known this, I didn't have to drive 80 miles an hour.
we need to save some money in that Hemi too.
Yeah, I could save some money. I have a buddy on another fire department. He got reprimanded about the same time I did. But I was going to a fire one night, and that was when we can go to everybody else's fire. I was going to a fire one night on the highway. Actually, I was functioning as a sheriff. That's the lie I tell. I'm functioning as a sheriff
Thou shalt not lie.
chaplain. As a sheriff chaplain,
Yes, sir.
I just happen to have red lights.
Okay.
And so I was going 87.
Okay.
And I couldn't catch him. He was going to the fire in a GT Mustang,
Oh.
Nice.
and the only thing I could see was tail lights for a brief second, and
They were gone.
He was gone. I got there. Later, he went on to the state trooper, and now he's had all kind of commendations of catching people because nobody can get away from him.
Oh, wow.
And so we put together a little program where we're gonna buy him a whisper jet. So he can get a jet the next time because the state trooper car is way too slow for him. But see, I remember following him all the way through sheriff's office until he became a firefighter, state trooper, when he was not old enough to be. And I waited 3 years for him to get old enough to be. So those are kind of memories that are good.
That's right.
This
This job's full of memories.
Yeah, memories that are good. I'm still learning in the fire service. I'm still learning the bad parts as well as the good parts. I've worked with some alcoholics in the fire service,
You don't say.
and that wasn't good. I've also, I don't want to call it a betting record right now, but for the 1, 2, or 3 firefighters that were going to commit suicide. We had talks, and they didn't complete it.
That's good.
I don't use the term successful anymore. I mean, I use the term complete. They didn't complete it. One realized that his mother, father, and sister were alcoholics one day, and asked him where was his gun. He said in the bed with him, and he said, "I get this." No, I get it. Fortunately, the bullets were out in the yard, so he had thought. But I never thought that I would have to go talk to a firefighter not to take his life.
Right.
And I don't claim I did anything. I claim this is when I claim God, so I got to get my commercial in. This is where I claim God, you know.
Get your commercial.
And because going there, I was saying, what do I do on the way to the scene? They asked me to come. They said, none of us are going to come. We're going to all leave. Will you come? And I had this premonition to take water, bottles of water, no radio, no pager, no cell phone even. Leave all of that in the truck. I said, oh, look about my cell phone. I left the radio in the truck, no cell phone. First thing he said to me how thirsty he was, how he needed water. And he had water in the house. Well, he needed water from me. And so we gave him water and we began to talk about fire stuff. And he was high up in the fire service. And I got him to a hospital out of this area where nobody would know.
Right.
Got him to the hospital, and then I don't know what happened to him later because I had to disassociate, really.
Sure.
I think what I hear you saying is that everyone brings something to the table, and when you're coming into a new world, whether it be, in your case, it was coming from law enforcement into the fire service.
Yeah.
People are skeptical of newcomers. People coming in, you're like, hey, who is this guy?
Man, yeah.
I think over time, people had to open themselves up
Yeah.
to learn, hey, who is the Reverend? Who is he? What's he all about? What does he bring to the table?
Right.
And I think what you're saying is that over time, it took a while for members of the fire service to accept you and to come to the realization of what it is that you bring to the table, only to find out that which you do
Took
bring
a
to the
long
table
time, yeah.
is very valuable to them.
But then when Jeremy came around me, he was like a wild man.
Still
I
is.
said, I want to be a wild man. I said, I want to be a wild man. That's what I want.
I want to be a cowboy in the Wild West.
Right. I want to be a fire chaplain wild man.
So is my assessment true in that they have now accepted you and are appreciative for what you do bring to the table?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that, and this is just me speaking from my experience, that you have a father figure. And sometimes when people come from a broken home and their life is broken,
Right.
when I'm going to say something, please don't jump across this table and
Okay.
smack me. When Grandpa comes in,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
is that when he comes in with those words of wisdom and that conversation and that mindset, it blocks them off again, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
But I will tell you that he has never once. This is what I love about Rev. If I called him at 3 a.m, he would know that, one, it's important.
Yep.
But 2, we can go months without talking and pick up just right where we left off.
Yep.
I was walking into the bakery the other day downtown, and I saw him. I was driving down the street. I drove around the block to go back, right? I had a million things to do. We sat and talked for, what, an hour?
Yep. That's true.
And I said, it is important for you to sit down with me, but it was more important for me to sit down here and talk with you today. Beautiful day. Beautiful fall day. So I think in the fire service, we are a different dynamic than, say, police officers.
Yeah.
Then definitely, as Phil knows with EMS, that it's a different world, all 3 services. And then you throw dispatchers in, and that's a
Right.
whole different world because they never get to see it,
Right.
right? They just get to hear it.
And firemen cannot be lazy.
But they are.
Yeah,
they
well,
are.
but sometimes, sometimes you say, well, let's put the hose back together at the station. Let's don't do it here on the scene. I'm tired. And you go back and you do it at the station later on, after you sit around and eat or whatever you do.
Right.
But firemen are not lazy. They know they got to get the equipment back
They're problem
together.
solvers.
A go-getter industry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's-
got to get the stuff back together quicker than hurry, because got the next bell to answer.
That's right.
And
Sometimes the bell comes before we even get back.
yeah, that's right. What got me one day was at a scene, and I had finally learned to stop being psychologically. What should I say? Stop trying to psychologically do everything with firefighters. And the guy said, the guy's head was out the truck, and they were putting body parts in a bag, and so I just asked the question, man, how do you cope with this? And he says to me, well, what I do is let's move past it and wait for the next bell.
Yeah, keep on.
I said, yeah, but
keep
that ain't
moving.
what,
Don't stop.
that ain't what you really do, because I knew this guy was going to end up like a bad transmission, that you're going to hear the transmission roaring and roaring and roaring, but the car wouldn't be going anyplace. And so I was able to help him by just not trying to psychoanalyze him, but ask him some questions.
Right.
And so the questions I asked were like, what are you going to do the next time? How do you forget this one? And how do you do that? And how do you do that? Well, now they got something that you can really use called EDMR that you can really do, but they won't let folks like me get certified in it.
Why is that?
They want some health professionals and some people with a whole lot of degrees behind their name, and
Sure.
and actually what it is I call it good voodoo. It's so because you move stuff around in your brain,
Yeah.
and so that's what it is. But the fire service has been different,
It's a whole different world.
a whole different world, and like you said, cops don't trust nobody.
They don't trust each
They don't
other.
even trust themselves.
Well, I will tell you this, though, at the firehouse.
Yeah,
You could leave a $100 bill lay on the table.
Yeah.
Nobody will touch it.
right.
But when it comes to mealtime and we split a pack of bacon, we will sit and count the bacon to make sure that someone did
That's
not take
true.
more than their fair
There's
share.
an old saying also in the firehouse. I trust a brother fireman with my wallet and my life, but I cannot trust him with my girlfriend or my wife.
Right, that's right. Then the other thing is, you can't leave a battery for your radio on the table,
Yep.
or can't leave a flashlight or a ballpoint pen.
No, ballpoint pen, especially the good ones.
Especially in EMS.
Yeah, the gel ones walk away.
Oh yeah, so it's a funny kind of situation. I like doing this podcast today, or whatever we want to call it.
That's what it is.
It's interesting because I don't like doing stuff like this. I don't like talking about myself. I get in more trouble going to speak places when I don't send them you didn't get. I don't send them a resume or anything
No.
like that.
Well, I've known your CV for quite a while. You know, and this is more like, let's talk about what you've done, not necessarily like career-wise, but
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, where did you do your growing up at?
In Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
So Rocky Mount. What was it like in Rocky Mount?
Well, I'm gonna write a book called Colored in Carolina, but
Give some people some context because we are not shooting a video.
and being a colored boy in North Carolina, what we were called at that time,
Okay.
and what are certain kind of experiences that you had.
Okay.
That you had. I remember one experience that I had that I really appreciated. My Uncle Bird, when my grandfather died, Uncle Bird kind of took me over.
Okay.
Uncle Bird, everybody was scared of Uncle Bird in the town. He sold new and used cars, and and what would happen, he would repossess his cars with a 16-ounce RC bottle.
RC Cole, do you have a moon pie in his pocket?
No, he just had the bottle. That's how he would crack your head and take the car back. And he would take the car back to his car lot,
Okay.
and then he would pay the bank, and then you would have to pay him. And what he had done, he had caught you up. He had got your credit good. Now you owed him instead of the bank.
Oh, so he was almost like a loan shark, but not a loan
Right?
shark.
Yeah, because he kept you from getting your car repossessed,
Okay.
especially the one that he sold to you that was going to have to come back to him that he didn't want coming back. And so I worked for Johnny Jewish guy, and I went to 7 o'clock in the morning, and I got off at 9 at night for $3 a day. And anything I ate came out of my $3.
Oh wow.
My uncle got pissed off about that and bought a service station and taught me how to manage it. And then I got really pissed off because the first time he gave me $3. And so I said, okay. And so one day, when Mountain Dews were really good,
Real sugar.
real sugar, and the Mountain Dews were really good, man. I would drink 6, 7 a day.
Rev.
I've always had a sugar thing, and then I would eat ice cream sandwiches.
Rev.
And then one day I decided I see my uncle go in and get cash out the draw, so I went in and got cash out the draw. And and when he put it in his pocket, I didn't know he was making change. But anyway, so one time he decided to send me to the store, to the bank, and I was skipping along the bank, and up comes Cub Pepper and his partner. Cub Pepper was the most racist, notorious cop in Rocky Mount ever.
Okay.
He beat many kids in Rocky Mount, took things from them.
What year are we talking here?
That was in the 50s, late
Okay.
50s.
What year model are you?
In terms of
What year were you born?
1946.
1947.
Okay.
And so I guess that's a baby boomer, is it?
I don't know.
One of them things. And so what happens is, on the way there, Cub Pepper stops me. Where am I going? Boy, where you going? Blah, 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 blah. So I go down to the room with the light up top. And
The interrogation room.
right, and I tell him who I am. That I'm Charles Lindbergh's nephew. And one of the things you knew, can we say bad words on it?
I don't care. Go right ahead. Let it rip, bro.
One of the things you did not do was fuck with Tom Stiff's grandson in Rocky Mount.
Okay.
Because my granddaddy sued the Boy Scouts in 1919. And he wanted the Boy Scout
shit.
troop, and they wouldn't give him a charter. So
Because of his skin color.
Right. So he developed 161 Boy Scout troop. And my grandfather knew herbs and roots and everything, and he for medicines for people who were sick. And during the Depression, he hid a farm, Aunt Hattie. As I knew her, Aunt Hattie's farm was out in Edgecombe County, and it was hidden away. And he would go get food, and he would bring back, and he would feed black folk, white folk, red folk, yellow folk, what other color?
Didn't matter.
And brown people, yeah.
Sure.
And it didn't matter. As an end result, he found out a lot of secrets about people, as well as white folk wanted to eat too during the Depression. And he basically was white potatoes that he was raising. And you can do a lot of things with white potatoes. Right?
Sure.
And so, as an end result, they gave him a job as janitor at one of the schools. But then later on, when things got better, he got to be a janitor at the post office, which was federal money.
Yeah, federal retirement.
And your check was different.
Yeah.
And your check was different as janitor. And my Uncle Lindbergh was janitor there. But most importantly, he did things that people recognized in the community. Tom Stiff, for example, Tom Stiff Parker still there today. One of the governors said he stayed the execution of 2 black men because they had not had the benefit of being in Tom Stiff's Boy Scout troop. Okay, we would get a call to put on our uniforms and be at the Boy Scout cabin at 4:30 after school, right? So what would happen? Some boy had disrespected his mama, his single parent mama, and that meant he would have to go through the belt line. And we were on both sides with our Boy Scout and Cub Scout belts. And he would make it halfway, but he was balling by the time he got to the end. Or if he wanted, he just had to repeat it. And we had to hit for real. We couldn't hit like we was like
Play hitting.
Play hitting, and I could tee off on him too, man. And I used the buckle part. That's probably abuse.
Batter up.
That's probably abuse.
Maybe that's why your boys
Yeah,
are so successful today. I mean, you've raised.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're a proud dad.
yeah. And my wife, my former wife, asked me, "How come they're 40, 45, and 46 and 43 years old? Why they act like little children around you?" I said, "Because they know about Marvin Gaye. Well, Marvin Daye's dead and shot him, you know. So basically, they know.
So tell me more about this racist cop.
And so
Yeah.
he took me back to. He said, "We generally beat your ass, but we're gonna take you back to see if you." And so what happened when they got back? My uncle comes out and said, "Officer Culpepper, how you doing? Skinny, how's it going?" Wait a minute. This guy hates no black people, or loves no black people, hates all black people, but y'all are tight. I ain't understand that. My uncle could do some things that defy gravity.
Sure.
Oh, what I found out later, my uncle would go hunting or fishing and bring Culpepper back stuff. Culpepper would bring my uncle back stuff, and that's how they, okay? Because every time my uncle would go out on the back of the postmaster would come, and he would call him out on the back of the post office. The folks would say, "Oh, he's giving it to him now. He may be fired. He may be firing him now." No, what they were doing, they was changing deer meat,
Yeah.
and they were talking, and so
Building relationships.
they had a relationship, and so he tells the cop, "Oh, that's my sister Alma's boy." So he don't give me a bit of trouble, and he's as honest as he can be. And you won't have to ever worry about him, officer. He said, "All right, then. We didn't know if it's your boy Skinny, then all right." And I realized he said, "Honest." So he don't know about the Mountain Dews. No trouble. He don't know about the ice cream sandwich. Honest. He don't know about the $2 or $3 I would be taking. He knew all of that. And so what he did the next day, he brought a big black pot out behind the service station, okay? And what happened? He said, "You're going to cook in this for lunch. Or we can't go to lunch anymore. Since you can drink 7 Mountain Dews, let me see how you drink 7 Mountain Dews after you eat a half a chicken." And so we fried chickens in that pot.
Oh, that sounds so good.
He give himself a half a chicken. He give me a half a chicken. Do you know how it is to eat a whole half a chicken?
It's a lot.
That's a lot. And I didn't want any Mountain Dews or nothing. I didn't want nothing.
Cured you.
I just wanted to move around.
So when are you going to write this book?
Pretty soon now. Next day, what happens, a guy comes up, I fill up his tank, jack his car up, and do something with the tire. The guy comes back, "Where's that little son of a bitch? Where's that?" He said, "My uncle, ho, wait a minute now. You talking about my nephew. I'll knock your ass out." And he said, "Did you put the jack where I told you, son?" I said, "Yes, sir, I did." Where you told me, I don't remember. But I put the jack somewhere in the car. I jacked up his gas tank. That's what I did. And so he said, "I'll buy you a new gas tank and fill it up for you."
Nice.
Well,
He
I mean,
said-
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but today that would be appropriate because gas is so high.
Yeah.
Gas is expensive.
Get it
I'm
high?
sorry, Rick.
Yeah,
Go
but,
ahead.
and I'm saying that
That was
my
dry.
uncle's covering for me like a big dog. And he always did because I was like his son, you know. But then we had the rude awakening. November 27, 1962. Miss Hawkins, earlier that week, Miss Esmeralda Hawkins had said, "I need you to stay after school." And I stomped my foot and said, "Shoot." And that translates shit. Then when I got home, my grandmama said, "Go around the house, apologize, beg her pardon," was the term Southerners used. Beg her pardon. And what I want you to do is rake up all her leaves and don't charge anything. I said, "Big Mama, you got to realize I am the magnet. I am the czar of leaf raking. I have an empire here to protect. I rake them and bag them or put them around the bed, around the trees for their flowers, the tulips to come up in and mix them with pine straw. In other words, I'm a landscape artist. And you ask me not to charge somebody?" I said, "Okay." Hey. I told her there would be no charge. She gave me money anyway. I didn't tell my grandma that. And short Coca-Colas. Woo! You could save a Coca-Cola for a year. You drink half of it, put the top back on it, and open back up. Psh, short Coca-Colas was something.
Did it sound as good as that beer I just opened up a
Yep,
minute
that's
ago?
about
Okay.
how it sounds. And she made me ginger cookies. But what she did was teach me world history. And when she taught me world history, teachers saw me different because Miss Esmeralda Hawkins was a renowned teacher at Booker T. Washington Senior High School, and she was well respected. And if she chose a student, everybody respected that student because she had heard some things about me and joking with me and stuff, and a little lightweight bullying. And so she said, "You're gonna be smarter than everybody else." Okay, so basically, all right. And as I began to study, I began to help kids with their homework, like the Blitzkrieg, like the Marshall Plan, like World War I, World War II, Cromwell, all that kind of stuff, world history. And so as an end result, she said I had won a contest. Brenda Armstrong was the smartest girl in the whole wide world. And Brenda Armstrong, may she rest in peace, ended up being a board-certified pediatric cardiologist at Duke.
Wow.
Brenda Armstrong's daddy, Dr. W.T. Armstrong, her uncle, Dr. L.P. Armstrong, were renowned in getting stuff done. Brenda went to Duke. She had a protest. Duke put her out of school. Duke got a call from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare and said, "I think you need to rethink that." And she was back in school the next day. Okay, Duke got the call from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Okay. Then Reverend James Costin, who baptized me, and who later sent me on a full ride to scholarship to seminary, and George Washington Dudley, pastor, brought Martin Luther King there. So an hour before King spoke at Booker T, Washington Gym, we celebrated 60 years of that the other day in Rocky Mount. I had an hour with Dr. Martin Luther King and Ms. Hawkins and Brenda Armstrong. And we had Coca-Colas.
You've actually met Dr. King.
An hour before
You've
we
been in
sat
his
down.
presence.
I was in his presence.
That's awesome.
And I wore him out because I knew stuff. Because Miss Hawkins had got me ready. So, Dr. King, why choose Mahatma Gandhi, this man with this little soiree, this robe on, and he talked about civil disobedience. And he and I talked about civil disobedience. We took it to a whole nother level that the other people in the room didn't even know to go. Yes, they did. I was just.
Well, most of my in-laws have a picture of Dr. King in their living room.
Right.
But I don't think anyone, and I don't think I have before, met anyone other than you who've ever been in his
King
presence.
was like anybody's good daddy or uncle. We talked and we did. So this is and then he had his I Have a Dream speech was done in Rocky Mount. It wasn't, I Have a Dream speech wasn't the first time in Washington, the monument. Because what happened here in Rocky Mount, he says, Rocky Mount, I have a dream tonight. That in the Georgia and little black boys and little black girls and little white girls and white boys would walk hand in hand. He had it there. They found it in the Braswell Library that black kids could not go to. That's where they found it. They found it when they were giving it a tab. We couldn't go to the library because we weren't allowed in the library. But across the street from me, Miss Morgan, she took all her money from teaching school, and in her living room, she devised a library. So that's where we studied, across the street in Miss Morgan's house. So got Dr. King and I talked. And the next night, he was at St. John's AME Zion Church on Goleaf Street in Rocky Mount. Okay. And so what happened? I got missing because Dr. King took me in the back with all the big name preachers from all across the country and stuff that were there. And he introduced me. It's like I was one of the pastors, I came back out with Uncle Bear. Son, where you been? So I decided to get in Uncle Bear's face. And I said, it's time for me to be about my Father's business. I read that. That's what Jesus did in the temple.
Absolutely.
Remember?
And now by this time, it's around 1965, and you're roughly 20 years
No,
old.
this is like St. 1962.
This is still in 1962.
Yeah. So that's the first time I ever understood what the term pimp slap. He knocked the hell out of me. My aunt grabbed me because I was in a daze.
Holy shucks.
And I was walking. He said, now go over there and get in that Oldsmobile. I said, what car? And she said, son, you can't talk to your uncle like that. I said, why? This is a fine time to tell me now. But anyway, years later, My uncle put a fifth of brandy on the table and 2 glasses.
Uh-oh.
And he said, son, I want you to forgive me because I was hurt by doing what I did that night. And then he said, I've never been able to live with it, and I just want you to forgive me. And he was about to cry. I said, ho, no problem. My son got in my face and I body slammed him. I said, thanks for teaching me what you do to somebody who's in your face that you're feeding, clothing, and are you paying for their education, buying their books, and they get in your face. I said, he started laughing. He said, did you show him London? I didn't know what that meant. But then later I knew what it meant because one of the kids that was bothering, that he was helping raise, he would grab and put him in a sleeper hole. And they would see, he said, they're going to see London in a minute. And then my aunt was running in the room, that boy is sickly. Don't show him London. Too late.
He got
So
Too late.
how was Dr. King to be around? I mean, was he?
Dr. King was gracious. He was gracious. And he took every word I said, and answered the question thoroughly. And he would walk me through the question with him, and I would ask him a question. He would walk me through the question with him because he would say, you know some of the answer. Let's see which parts of the answer you know, and then how I can help you. He was like your granddaddy or your uncle that you looked up to. Like I looked up to Tom Stitt.
Sure.
Okay, like you looked up to. Then one day, I keep going back to early times. The babysitter had me out for a walk, and the babysitter, the guy that was supposed to be keeping me, decided that we could walk across the Tar River. So we were going to walk across the Tar River, no problem. And I looked up, there was about 500 men that had come from all over eastern North Carolina. The word that had gone out, I was missing. They were on trucks, 3-4 trucks, bags of trucks. They were in cars. They were blowing horns. As I turned around, I was about up to here as a little boy in the Tar River. Now, the guy that was babysitting, oh boy, I hate to think what they did to him that day.
Yeah.
But we met later on in life, and he did tell me he was kind of shell-shocked still from that. But my granddaddy could get black men and do anything he told them to do.
But I also hear you saying, and you've not said it, but I'm reading between the lines. I hear you saying 2 things, Doc. I hear you saying that, number one, I found my life calling to be a fireman when I was 3 years old. God revealed that to me. I hear you saying that as early as your teenage years, 1962, 1963, you had found your calling to be a leader of men, and if not already at that time, to go into the ministry. The second thing I hear you saying, by the fact that 500 men came looking for you, a little boy, you weren't even a 20-year-old man yet, you're a boy,
Right.
but you and your family had a reputation of being such good people that they would bend over backwards to do that for you because they respected you.
My granddaddy and big mamas, I said, always help people. They said you always have to help people. They were feeding what we used to call hobos.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who were on the train, to come in on the train or whatever.
Right.
Because, see, Rocky Mount was the seaboard coastline. One of the things that my uncles would do, give me ice cream on Sunday and take me to watch the trains come in. And so what we would do, we would meet the sleeping car porters, like Mr. Chase, who was a sleeping car porter, and me and his son, Ronald Chase, were buddies. We would take him food and stuff, and he would give the money to the family, and his tips and stuff to the family at that particular time, and bring money in. So Mr. Chase and Mr. Taylor and them were sleeping car porters. Later on in life, when I went to see the trains, Mr. Taylor's sons was a conductor. See how things change.
Yeah.
Was a conductor. One time I had lost a ticket or something, and the guy said, I'm not changing the ticket. How do I know you lose it? Blah, 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 at the train station. And he said, only a conductor. So I noticed that then my aunt came. Both of my aunts came to the station, and they didn't give me money to buy another ticket. What happened, Strikeout Taylor got off the train, and he was a conductor. He said, that's Choke. He said, Choke, how you doing, man? I said, this is what the conductor, the guy at the station told me, And he said, "Oh, you just take your seat. This is your seat." He said, "Give him the seat." I rode all the way to the place where I was going with no ticket
There you go.
because the conductor said I could do it.
Well, speaking of Ticket Trip, I gotta put in. You talked about a sponsor. We've got some great partners that we have here at Box 1971. We are outfitted with FireDex Tech Gen and 71 and 51 for our PPE, and FireDex is a company that says you take care of them and we take care of you, and we are completely happy with our Tech Gen 71 turnout gear. Captain Farrell, retired captain out of FDNY, is the owner and founder of Fire Hooks Unlimited. Box 1971 is an authorized trainer and distributor for Fire Hooks Unlimited. Matex Hose, it's a no BS approach to fire hose. Everything you thought you knew about fire hose, you probably get tuned up if you paid attention to Matex. It's GPM or gallons per second versus BTU anymore. Rock Rooster Footwear, be the cock of the walk with Rock Rooster Footwear. What do we say? Rock out with your cock out. And, every step matters. And you can use Box 1971 at checkout for 15% off. That's great. Our good buddy Mike Perrone from East Brooklyn, New York, 175
East
truck.
New York, Brooklyn.
Yeah, he founded the Firehouse Innovations Corporation, the Blue Door, as it's known affectionately in the fire service. And we are an authorized trainer for him as well. And lastly, Mikey in at First in Leather. He's originally from North Carolina. Firefighter owned, firefighter crafted. You get a lifetime replacement on his work. If you need anything, it's a one-stop shop for radio straps, helmet fronts, whatever you need, chin straps, glove straps. Use code BOX1971 for 10% off, $50 or more. Rev.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about, enlighten us on your education. So when you graduated,
I graduated from Booker T. Washington Senior High School in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, one of the historic African-American schools in the country. Also, it was listed one of the best, quote, black schools in the country. Miss Esmerella Hawkins said I was going to go to Johnson C. Smith University. That's the lady who got me to meet Dr. King. And later, if you remember when Dr. King was at Washington, he started making a speech, and Mahalia Jackson said, "Reb, what about the dream?" She kept interrupting, "Reb, what about the dream?" So he did his Rocky Mount speech. I have a dream, and so my teachers in Booker T, I would have been in special ed nowadays. Now, with my ADHD and everything, I would have probably been in special ed. But the teachers were going to make sure I learned. In the Presbyterian Church in Rocky Mount, Mount Pisgah, R.D. Armstrong was the principal of the school. Coach Atkinson was the football coach. Coach Denver Lawrence was one of the coaches. James Earl Lawrence taught me how to run the 180-yard low hurdles in track. I was like second in the state because I kept running into the butt of Tony Ford out of Hillside in Durham. I mean, I could start off staggered lanes or whatever. Tony Ford was winning, and I had to decide what I was going to do. Except when Tony Ford wasn't in the race, I was a bad motor scooter when he wasn't in the race. Because we learned how to hurdle. Tony Ford's coach, Coach Blunt, I think retired about 96 years old before he retired from coaching.
Wow.
Gracious.
And he could teach you. I mean, he could do anything. And so
the good Lord not only gave you a great education, but the good Lord also gave you physical talent.
right, well, yeah, but I didn't take it because what's called offered me a full ride, man. To go to Fayetteville State, I didn't want to run no more track. I didn't want to see a track. I wanted an Oldsmobile. And so I said, no. Well, what had, as they say, what had happened was I got ejected out of one football game.
what'd you do?
Come on, Rev, not you.
That's a story.
The guy was throwing dirt, and we were all throwing dirt. You know, when the ball snapped, you throw dirt in other people's eye. But he was throwing dirt, but he was beating me, but he was throwing dirt. But I saw an opportunity to crack his head,
Yeah.
and I took it.
Well, that's frowned upon.
Well, he had one bar across there. Remember the one bar?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I caught him with the elbow right in the nose. And he never been hit so hard. You really don't want to fight. You really don't want to discuss it, anything. You just want to let it go. He let it go, but the referee grabbed my arm, and that's not a good thing. When they grab your arm, they walk you to the coach.
Oh.
They don't eject you out the game like they do now. They walk you to the coach. And coach said, you never make an athlete. Go sit your ass down on the bench. So, okay. I didn't learn, man. Next week in practice, guy went the wrong direction. I'm 135 pounds, and he's a fullback. He went the wrong direction. And I picked him up and body slammed him like a wrestler. Coach called me in and took my equipment. Oh. The other coach tried to talk for me. He said, Coach, actually, he's a running back. He's meaner than a rattlesnake, but he's a running back. Because they had seen me run. Matter of fact, Coach had seen me run because we had a playground. That's where we played with no pads. That's where he recruited from. His linemen and everything. Every Thanksgiving, we had our own bowl with 11 on each team, and substitution and coaching.
It ain't 3 and 4 kids in the front yard like it was when I was growing up.
Right.
No.
Team.
All-time quarterback.
And he came and got us. And but then what did he do for me? He said, you are now my statistician. I don't know about no statistician. I don't know math. I can't do math. He need to know plus minus yards by halftime. I had to know that, and there were no calculators. Plus minus yards. And then he said, you're going to do play-by-play for WEED radio with the announcer. You're going to spot for the announcer. So the announcer would engage me on the radio like you guys are doing, and I didn't know what to say. But I learned some patent things. And then, like, we didn't have a good season. He said, well, what do you think about the season, son? I said, well, just like the New York Yankees, we always say, we'll wait till next year. Signing off. So what was I doing? I was learning statistics. I was doing play-by-play with the radio guy, and I was writing for the newspaper. When we go on out-of-town trips, the Rocky Mount Telegram would have me call them back to scores and who did what, and they wrote the story based on what I gave them. I was making $40 a month, man.
Decent money.
Decent money. And the movies, my whole movie thing would be 10. For a whole month would be 10 if it took a girl. Because basically, we were upstairs because we couldn't go downstairs in the movie. So we were upstairs in the Lincoln Theater, and they had the machines upstairs and stuff. And so when we finished, that was the first pour your own drink after you buy one. Nice. Because we would when they would go downstairs, we would get to the machine, and then we hear the name call. We would hear people call us names from the bottom. And you remember the Dixie plastic cups?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You remember when the ice wasn't shaved and it had the points on it?
Yes, sir.
And you wrap it in a Dixie cup? And you throw something down there, you hear, ow! Yep. If you didn't hit nothing, if nothing hollered, you didn't hit nothing. And so then it caused all kind of names, wanted to fight us afterwards. But then they would come up and say, who threw that? And shoot, I was kissing my girl. I ain't got time to be throwing nothing down there. Because when they came up, it looked like an orgy. Because everybody was kissing that
Everyone's
girl.
lip locked.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Looked like Grease up there.
But so
The country, not the movie.
Those are some of the Rocky Mountain, right? Those are some of the kind of the Rocky Mountain experiences I have being colored in Carolina. So I left there. One of the things that I still remember today, and I talked to Gloria Upshaw quite a bit. Gloria Upshaw and I were voted the most friendliest students in the school.
Wow.
Just
And
mean
that-
on a football field.
Yeah, that's what that mean on the football field. I thought it was war. And the reason I made the team because he had me on the kickoff team, and I would run down. They would say, "Look at this little peep square." And by the time they would get to me, I would hit them and lift, and right up under the chin, I would hit them up under the chin and lift them off. And if it didn't knock them out, it knocked them on the ground. And that was on the kickoff. And I was learning. I'm just running down the field, and they said, "Well, he's not gonna bother anybody. He's too little."
Right.
And then I would turn into you and hit you somewhere in the jaw or right in the solar plexus.
Yep.
With the pads. And coach liked that. So one day I had a row of guys standing over there. I had hit. And one guy asked me, he said, "Why did you hit me like that day? We supposed to be friends." I said, "Well, coach told me to hit you." He said, "Pick him in." He said, "Let me see you knock him out when you go down there." I said, "Pop!" He said, "Oh." And so,
Challenge accepted.
but then Coach got me a full scholarship to Fayetteville State, and I wouldn't take it to run track to make amends for kicking me off the field, off the team. Then I got him back, though. See, one thing retribution was something I learned very early. Sometimes I did it and couldn't. I said, one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get him if the last thing I do, kicking me out of football. I'm still mad about that.
To this day?
To this day.
50 years later.
50 years later. But I got him back, so it's all right. I qualified in the regionals to run in the finals for the 180-yard low hurdles. Guess what? When the finals came up to run, there was a Westminster Fellowship Youth Church meeting at the same time in the state. And I told him I wasn't going to run track. I was going to the Youth Fellowship meeting.
Wow.
Well, that's where Priscilla was with the big legs. But anyway.
Here I thought we were going somewhere
Yes,
noble.
We did go somewhere noble. First of all, you threw me off the team. You broke my heart. You threw me off the team. Then you bring me all this new track stuff, these new track shoes, this new track outfit. So, what's the deal with all this? All of a sudden, I'm important to you. You would give me donuts, free donuts in the morning because I love donuts, man. Free donuts.
I think you're a sugar fiend.
I am. Donuts. So what happened, I went to the youth fellowship. I got you, didn't I? I went to the youth fellowship. I had a good time in the meeting. Tony Ford won his state championship, of course. I could have been at least runner-up. And so what happened was when it got time to give me my letter, he didn't. So I didn't get my letter for track in high school. So who really won? Okay? Because I had a letter coming for running track. And I let it, okay? But who really won?
Right.
So later on, we and I came together, and I did him a favor later too. I didn't date his daughter. That was another favor to him.
That's probably a relief, I guess.
She'd have been in the upper balcony.
And so, but I appreciate what he did for me all during the time of coaching. And so I went to Johnson C. Smith, and first there was a party, and a guy named Harold Winston was there, and Father Heath, my best friend Sylvester Blake, and I would leave church and go to the Episcopal church because Sylvester Blake and I would drink the wine that would be left over. And Father Heath knew we were drinking the wine.
This makes me happy.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you. This makes me happy. This conversation makes me happy. The whole premise of this conversation makes me happy because there is a preconceived notion, I think we can all agree on, that men of the cloth are pure driven, don't know what it's like. You can't assimilate to what I went through.
Right.
And here you are. I've heard some of these stories, and some of them I'm hearing for the first time, I'm taken back. But it's nice to know
He's a real person.
Yeah, that it's not just an education. It's not just a front. This is who you are, and it's okay to be who you are.
Well, put it this way: do you realize when I talk like this, it costs me $125 an hour with the therapist, and I can come in here and talk to y'all, and smoke cigars secondhandedly, I'm keeping my cigar though.
He's been
Hey,
holding.
listen, that is speaking of keeping a cigar. That is the Box 1971 custom blend.
Oh, okay.
So we don't just hand those out just to anybody.
Thank
so
you.
please take that.
Describe
with
to
you.
our listening audience how he's been rolling that thing
Yeah,
around.
I've been waiting for him to put it in his mouth and look like an old, like a carny. How
That's what I'm gonna do.
they would never smoke them. I am smoking Fior di Seri from Tony Peach, a Maduro. What are you having, Phil? I think you're having a Cohiba.
Yes, a Cohiba.
All right, and Rev has unlit his cigar, which is okay, but he gave us
70
permission.
gauge.
Yeah, 70 by 7 gauge. Wow, what a cigar that is. And Big John, what are you having?
I've got a Fat Bottom Betty that I'm trying out.
Fat Bottom Betty. That's like that song, Fat Bottom Girls.
Yeah.
Good song.
It's a great song. So you went to school.
I went to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
The party was for me to meet Harold Winston. Harold Winston is about 4'11".
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
I'm just saying. I'm trying to figure out who in here would be close to Harold. So what happens
For
is
reference, that's all.
I get to
That's funny.
school, I have $38 to my name, and I have no room on campus. So I go into the latest place I'm supposed to be staying. I get evicted after 30 minutes.
What did you do?
I put my trunk in the house. I had no money. She put the trunk back on the front.
It's fair.
So the first semester, I slept on the kitchen floor in some guy's house. Didn't know where the library was. Didn't do nothing. Was getting ready to get put out of school because I had no money, and I didn't see Harold Winston. And he said he was going to be there. It was his first year being there. I thought I would have a buddy in the freshman class, right? Go past the door. They told me to go to the financial aid office, see if anything could be done for me. I knocked on the financial aid office. I looked up. Harold Winston, director of financial aid.
Oh.
I said, wait a minute. That was the guy's name that was going to be coming to school here. He said, just because I look short. He said, you thought I was a student? I said, no, sir. I thought you were. Yeah, I did think you were a student. He said, I meant this is the first year that I was going to be working here as a financial aid officer. He said, I've had your package sitting on my desk. What? He said, no, you ain't got to worry about school. He said, Father Heath took care of that. All the Father Heath didn't take care of, I did. He said, you go see a guy named Red in the cafeteria because you are now a short order cook. I am? Yes. Red will teach you how to cook hamburgers and hot dogs. That's what the short order cook does in the cafe, and how to clean the grill at night. I went to see Red. Red taught me, first day, he didn't even teach me hot dogs and hamburgers. He taught me how to take the odometer loose in a car, in a rental car. So I could turn
What I
it.
really learned in college.
Yeah. And so when I took the car back, I had only driven about 10 or 12 miles.
Man, I need to talk to you
I think
later.
that's the one thing that we learned really in college
Yeah.
was how to beat the system.
All right.
Amen.
And Red said, now, when you, at about 9 o'clock, there's always going to be some food that's hungry. So cook about 2 or 3 cheeseburgers, have them ready. You get the cheeseburgers ready after you close. And when you get ready to clean the grill, get 2 or 3 hot dogs ready. Okay. I said, I said, what happened if they don't come? He said, you take them to the room with you. Okay. I had a roommate named Snooky. And Snooky and I, since they weren't so sure we were going to stay in school because of our grades, they put you in a certain dorm that you left. You would leave that dorm and people wouldn't see you when you flunked out of school.
Yeah.
And Snooky now, and the dorm was so hot that we had to raise the windows in the wintertime.
Wow.
It was steam heat.
Ooh.
So we could wash our clothes, lay them on the radiator. We could iron on the radiator.
Been there, done that.
And we could put food on the radiator to keep it warm. And so Snooky and I became real tight. Then Snooky ran into Veronica. I didn't see Snooky for a while. Snooky became a millionaire. He became a millionaire, and with insurance. He was an insurance agent, broker. And he would come to homecoming with mink coats and stuff on. But he would always stop and talk about how much he appreciated me and stuff. I said, Snooky, you a millionaire. You riding around in a 2-seater Mercedes. You a millionaire. He said, man, Choke, you looked out for me, man. I said, what, Snooky? So I would go see Snooky, okay. Snooky died. And I went to the funeral, and the pastors were so uppity in the 3,000-seat church that they didn't want me in the pulpit, and I couldn't say anything. So, okay, fine. As they were coming, the funeral was over, I went up and got in the line as the pastors were greeting the family, and Veronica said, Choke! And grabbed me and stopped the whole funeral. And had her children come to meet me. This was your daddy's roommate. This is who your daddy has always been talking about. Choke from Rocky Mountain. And that meant a lot to me because Snooky, I remember every time I go see Snooky, he said, oh, I'm getting ready, let's go drink, let's go do this. Nope, my granddaughter just called me, see you later, Choke. And that's how Snooky was. Okay. Snooky always talked about me, because especially when I was on the Phil Donahue show, but that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that. But anyway, I was on probation.
At school.
I was on one, then I was on probation. I was going ready to flunk out of school. My Aunt Martha, Uncle Bird's wife, called me and said she was coming up there to whip me in front of the students, in front of the fellas. Come on, Aunt Martha. Look, let's talk.
We're adults now.
Yeah. No, I was 18. Aunt Martha was a high school physical education teacher. She taught me track too, because I could never beat her. She used to give me a head start and still beat me. And I was saying, Aunt Martha, give me a break. Give me a chance. Give me an opportunity. Then I ran into the late Melvin Penn. May he rest in peace. He died this year. The great Melvin Penn. He called me, he named me Chocolate Choke, the Black Power Man, dog number 1. I pledged Omega Psi Phi fraternity because I saw these guys and the girls was going crazy over this purple and gold they were wearing. They were doing steps, they were singing, they were pledging, and I was saying, man, what in the world? And they said you have to have good grades to be in the fraternity.
I'm going to interrupt you right there.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I worked at Presbyterian Medical Center downtown Charlotte.
Yeah.
And those boys came in there, that fraternity, with the purple and gold.
Yep.
These guys were probably in their 50s. They were frat brothers. And one of their brothers was a patient in the ER and stayed in the ER for 2 days. And those boys came in and out for 2 days
right.
straight. What a tight,
awesome.
tight fraternity.
Our motto is friendship is essential to the soul.
It's pretty
and
profound.
And all the girls love it, Q's too, by the way. And so you got some Q's like Jesse Jackson, like the guy who got killed, Magneto got killed in the missile plane. Got a lot of good guys like Charles Drew, who invented blood plasma. And so we just celebrated 111 years.
I tell you, those boys were tight. We were all impressed.
We
with
tight now.
I mean, their fraternity brothers kept coming in and out over a 48-hour period. That man was in the ED.
We better
They were
clarify
tight.
something. I think you're saying boys as in young men, not as in the derogatory.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You didn't take that
Okay.
derogatory. You
I
didn't
just
take
wanted
that.
to make sure that somebody doesn't
Because
get
they act
turned
like
off.
boys anyway.
Well,
we get together, we all
no,
do.
no.
You know how people are, though,
Rev,
Rev. They're going to look
no.
for any reason to
That
say,
white man just called them black guys boys.
yeah, no, and little do they know
No.
that you were married to a black woman.
American to an African-American beautiful woman for 14 years.
Oh,
Rev.
Phil,
I thought
Rev,
you knew that.
Rev, do you know how Phil likes his coffee? Ask him. He'll tell
How
you.
you like a coffee?
Large, strong, and black.
Just like his women.
Just like my women. But let me explain something to you about this fraternity.
Yeah, so you made the fraternity.
Melvin Penn was a chemistry major. You know what that means? That
Good at
means
memorization.
the best liquor in town was made in the lab. Okay? Then we had Squirrel from Winston-Salem. Melvin Penn and Squirrel were some of the best tennis players in the country. They came to our school as black guys that came to our school, right?
Right.
They won the CIAA championship on a number of years, and we would hear something like, "Oh hell, what happened?" It would be Yale. They just beat Yale tennis team.
Yeah,
East Strasburg
prestigious
State.
white school. Yeah.
And so what happened? They made me study. They took an interest in me. Antonio Lawrence, the late Antonio Lawrence, went to high school. I did everything he did. He played football. I had to play football. He went to John C. Smith. I had to go to John C. Smith. He went to law school. I said, man, go to hell. I ain't going to no law school.
And you probably didn't play tennis either, did you?
Yeah, I played tennis.
Did you?
I
No-
played,
no
played
shit.
tough tennis after I got out of school. You got to realize in North Carolina and Virginia, the top black tennis players in the country were in North Carolina and Virginia.
I never knew that.
Arthur Ashe from
Yeah.
Virginia.
Arthur Ashe,
Is he from
Richmond, right?
Virginia?
Richmond.
I didn't
Yeah.
know he was a Southern
Yeah, there's an
boy.
Arthur Ashe
No
Boulevard
kidding.
when you drive up. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you spend enough time on 95, like some of us.
I did not know Arthur
Yeah.
Ashe was from down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, get
And
outta
we had guys that played against Arthur Ashe and stuff. And Lincoln and Raleigh had some of the best tennis players, like Charles Worth. Don't tell the big head boy that now, but he's one of the top tennis players in Lincoln and Raleigh. And Lincoln had Stewart and Crockett. They called them Thunder and Lightning. They were so fast, so they got the ball. And Pat White. May he rest in peace. He's the greatest of all time. Pat White played a whole year tennis, baseball, basketball, football with stomach cancer.
Good
Wow.
Lord.
And he died at the end of the season. He had stomach cancer
So
the
he
whole year
made the best of it while he was doing
while
it.
he was doing it. But so what happens is, I tell our mom to give me a break. I had an 0.8 on the system. It ain't even on the system. The next semester I had a 3.2.
Wow.
3.3. I made the dean's list after that. Dean's list was lot better than flunking out.
Do you credit your fraternity brothers as being influential?
Them and my aunt
And her.
and her.
Typically, you see Rev in fraternity colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He usually has a jacket or a hat on, one of the two.
And
Today's
purple and
just an
gold.
off day.
Yeah, today's off day. And so after that, I began to like school. Miss Iona Jones said, "You're a writer." I'm not no writer. She got me out of the mean woman's English class. The first day she would say that the author gets the A, I get the B, and my bright students get the C. And she got me out of that class, and I began to make A's in English. And she taught me how to write. The Treewell Literary Society I joined. And I wrote, she said, "I want you to write with anger and black pride, and I want you to write with all of this." So in around 1969, maybe, they killed 3 students on South Carolina State's campus. 3 black students, state troopers killed. Straight up murder.
Wow.
Everybody else was afraid to. Everybody else was afraid to have a march. I called for a march to downtown Charlotte. And you're going to remember these names. So at the end of the day, I'm standing on the campus with H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael,
Stokely Carmichael, yes.
Cleve Sellers,
Cleve Sellers.
his son Baraki Sellers in South Carolina, Cleve Sellers. And we were going to see Oxford's own Ben Chavis
Ben Chavis.
and T.J. Reddy. And we went and saw them. After that, they ran me for president of the Student Christian Association.
Nice.
That's when I realized what the big time could do for you. Because each student paid $15 a year times 1,500 students. Y'all do the math. And that's the money I had in the budget the first year.
Wow.
Not that which was some of that which was left over from the other year. So I could help students. We like a gospel choir. And then, oh, by the way, I went to audition for the choir, and I didn't know the language or anything. And I said, "Sir, I sing bass." And so he gave me something to sing. Then he said, "You're not a bass." I said, "Oh, man, I didn't miss." He said, "You are basso profundo."
You said, what in the
I
world
said-
does that mean?
I said, "Thank you very much.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Yeah, really.
God bless you." So I toured with Johnson C. Smith's choir in the bass section.
Are you going to give us the privilege of hearing you sing something before you leave today?
For behold, never mind, darkness shall cover, the earth. But anyway,
You're a mess.
but when they took
love this guy.
my thyroid out, I couldn't. It's been years, but I'm just getting the voice back.
Yes, sir. Sorry to put you on the spot. Like
And so
that,
what
Rev.
happened is that I traveled with Johnson C. Smith Choir the Hour. And that way I got food and everything because I was traveling, got a little clothing allowance, And they still didn't discover that I ran track. He had that all those years. I didn't want to run track. And so I pledged Omega Psi Phi fraternity. April 18th, 1969.
Man, your memory is amazing.
I became a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Bloody Row chapter. Row Nation, we call it now.
RHO.
RHO, Row Nation. It looked like a P in the Greek, the letter P.
Okay.
And so we celebrated our 100th year a few years ago.
Nice.
Row Nation is a single letter. When you have a single letter like alpha, beta, then when you get down to the end of the alphabet, you had that joined letters, Greek letters together.
Yes, sir.
But we are Row Nation, so which means we were at least 100 years old.
Did you have a lambda?
Probably so.
That's
That silly movie, Revenge of the Nerds. Remember
Yeah.
that movie?
You
I
remember
saw
that
that movie.
So you graduate.
From Johnson C. Smith, almost with honors. It didn't matter because I had done so bad in the earlier years They had to figure all that in too.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But I became a philosophy major, and so I also tutored a lot of people in philosophy. And I had guys like Dr. Smith or whatever from the Sorbonne, and I could hang with those guys. There were 3 majors. One went completely nuts. The other girl graduated at the top of the class, and I graduated right behind her. Touring with the choir, meeting great people like Dr. James H. Costin, and spending money, spending Harold Winston's money. And he's still living. He's still living, by the way. He's also my fraternity brother. That gave me the money to go to school.
We got to send this to him then, so
Yeah.
he'll listen to it.
And Harold Winston, we love Harold Winston. All of us love Harold Winston, and he would tell us that. So I met guys like AC. Arthur Canada is a retired Presbyterian minister.
Mm-hmm.
AC got late for a trip one time. Okay. And we always tease him. And he says, I redeemed myself. I got a CDL license. He stole a whole Trailway bus.
Jeez almighty.
Drove the bus to the stadium and parked it in the bus places where buses nobody ever knew to this day, except I just told him that he had stolen that bus. And then I meet guys like Squirrel. Squirrel is one of my best friends, fraternity brother. Squirrel played on the tennis team. His claim to fame was he would lob the ball so high in the air that you were waiting like, say, well, this guy played right. By that time, the ball would drop down and you lost the point. Antonio Lawrence. Dorette Corbett was my best friend. Dorette had leukemia and multiple myeloma at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
He died. When he died, I was real tight with this whole family. I had friends like, we always name people on our block. We have a guy that had a mustache like yours, Jeremy, when he was in the 6th grade.
Mercy.
He had hair on his face. We called him Juan Pedro.
Juan Pedro.
Juan Pedro. And Juan Pedro he just retired as a board of trustees from Harry Medical College as well as an attorney. And we talk quite often. Guy named Jimmy Spruill, we nicknamed him. His name was Kenneth Spruill. We named him Jimmy. Jimmy just brought me a 5-pound pan of chopped turkey barbecue.
Wow.
Love barbecue.
Those are the people
Turkey
that I
barbecue.
grew up with in Rocky Mount. You talk about Rocky Mount.
I think it's great that 60 years later you're still friends and still keep in contact with folks.
Yeah, we still call each other. And when we lose them bit by bit, and we still tell the lies we used to tell, we have guys named Hoghead. We guys named all kinds of names. You know, we named each other, and we've been friends all of the years. And matter of fact, Jimmy Spruill, I call Jimmy Spruill. Jimmy Spruill said, "Stop chasing women, man. You know we too old. We got prostate problems, and just chill out." You know, he said, "For all the stuff we've done, taken other people's girlfriends. We've been with them, and they didn't know it." I said, "I know Jimmy Spruill. I know."
So, what got you involved in the seminary?
God plays tricks on people. I have just finished working with Western House Learning Corporation, sitting in my Uncle Bird's house.
Okay.
Uncle Bird told a lie. He said, I'm sitting here drinking iced tea with my son right now. He was drinking beer, and I was drinking iced tea. And Dr. James H. Costin called him. And Dr. Costin, later, who's started in Rocky Mount as my pastor, baptized me. Then he became president of the Interdenomination Theological Center in Atlanta, made up of 7 different schools of African American denominations. AME, the Presbyterian there, the Baptist school was there, Morehouse School of Religion, which was the Baptist. And then he said, I'm sending for you to come to school. I got there. He had a room for me. I didn't have to pay for it. A room, the board, my food was paid for. I only thing I had to do was sign in books for my books. And so what happened? If one kid couldn't afford a book, I could buy 2.
Nice.
So I bought 2.
Nice.
And if he couldn't afford a legal pad, I could buy 2 legal pads. And so I did that for a while. Then I was making $200 a month in 1970. And room and board was free and everything, okay? And driving a Volkswagen. And they called me a street preacher because I hung out on the street most of the time with folks and chasing the girls on the street
Sure.
because they had interesting stories and they were human beings.
Sure.
They were human beings. I hung out on Martin Luther King Drive in different places, and wore mostly dungarees and stuff in the clerical collar.
What's a dungaree for those that don't know?
Well, dungarees is it's like jeans now, but it was sometimes it was the overalls
Right.
that you pulled over.
Don't make fun of my bibs now.
My man's a preacher, but what he's saying, he's
A man of the street.
he's still a real person.
Yeah,
He hasn't forgotten where he's come from.
There was big fun. We would go down there because let me talk about somebody else, KZ Chavis. When I was in Kanawha, C. Chavis was kind of like Holowashaponi, and he was African American Indian, and he knew my uncle. So first time I went to Atlanta, I said I need a place to stay. I don't have a place to stay. He said, "You stay with me." I said, "How much can I pay for rent?" He said, "You ain't gonna pay me nothing for rent. Me and your uncle was tight, okay?" So, man, all right. And so he was chasing girls, and I kept my mouth closed.
So one thing led to another, and eventually, by the time you were a student at college, you were already involved in some respect, even if it's just towed just barely in the water. In some respect, you finally got your way into the ministry
Yeah.
in the 1960s. You met Dr. King in the early 60s. By
Yeah.
the time you were in college, you were part of the Christian ministry on your
That's right.
campus.
Where did you go to theology school at?
ITC, in the denomination of Theological Center, Atlanta.
So
Johnson C. Smith University. I graduated from Johnson C. Smith University and went to Johnson C. Smith Seminary.
okay, and so Reverend Doctor. I always get that wrong. I always give you a hard
Yeah,
time.
that's-
I'll text
that's
you at
all
least
right.
once a year and say, "Is it Doctor
We
first
just
or
call
Reverend?"
him Rev.
Yeah, that's
most of the
exactly.
time.
That's
Yeah.
what
I've always called him Rev.
Yeah, I just call him Rev, and I even when I talk about you, I just say Rev, and I
Okay.
assume that people know who I'm talking about, but they sometimes don't.
All right.
So you have your doctorate. What is that in? Is that in theology?
That's in the doctorate in doctorate of ministry.
Okay.
And my theme on my title was ministry and cultural context.
Right.
And there's ministry and cultural context that you have to do. And I studied under the great Dr. Kenny in Virginia Union and Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. Samuel DeWitt Proctor was one of the pastors to many of the presidents. And he was Samuel DeWitt Proctor. He was like up there with King
Wow.
and Howard Thurman and those guys. And so then the D-Min is a practical doctorate.
Okay.
You have to get some associates, some contextual associates, that they follow you and they see that you are doing what you say you're going to do, and it has to affect somebody. What my specialty is doing inventories and everything, and I can pinpoint what your spiritual gift is. And so that's what.
I would love to sit down and
Yeah.
have that conversation with you. You and I could.
Yeah.
That'd
Wow.
be great.
I didn't
Someday,
know that.
Please.
You're like a. Don't take this the wrong way. You're like an ogre, and ogres have layers.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, or an onion. I mean, onions make you cry.
Right. And
Don't make me
exactly. And so, so I went to all HBCUs.
cry. Okay.
Now I've taught at some white schools.
Historically, all black college.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, is that right?
Historical black colleges and universities. And I've taught at some other schools, but basically I went to all HBCUs because I couldn't tolerate. I got too old for racism, and I couldn't tolerate it, and
Yeah.
so I wasn't going to take it.
Well, Rev, I mean, I've only, I just interrupted you, and please forgive me. I've only known you for about 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And never once have I ever felt that there was anything. I mean, you are not a black man. You are the Rev. And for the very minute that I very first met you, you walk in the room. You're not much taller than I am, but when you walk in the room, I said, "Oh my gosh, this man's a giant." So there's something about you. You walk with there's something about you when a man sees you. This is a big man coming in this room,
Well,
and I have had a lot of respect for
My
you
teachers
ever
have
since I
told
first
me
met
some
you.
things. One, they told me you're not better than anybody else, but you're just as good as everybody else.
Amen to
And
that.
that's what my teachers always put in me. Because, see, I was slow. When I didn't get diagnosed to ADHD until I was in the doctoral program. I said, bullshit, y'all should have lowered my self-esteem in middle school. I is educated now. I is a doctor.
I is a doctor.
I is a doctor. So you should have caught me earlier, much earlier, if you're going to, because of my ADHD. But what I did, now I can help other kids with ADHD. What I did with my ADHD, which Don Marie hates, I own about 2,000 to 3,000 ballpoint pens. Because I have a fetish. In fact, when I get tired of one, I write it with another. And so what did I do in class? I wrote notes in class upside down in square boxes and everything. I would change colors when I wanted to disrupt the class. I would change the color of the pen. And then I would still be attentive in class.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but boy, when they came out with laptops and stuff, I'd be in class watching TV, writing notes, doing something else. And the guy called upon me and I said, "That's the point you just last made." And he was saying, "How did he know that?" ADHD can give you some wonderful things if you don't fall for the okie doke or something's wrong with you.
Right.
And whatever. ADHD means that you multitask and you shouldn't be multitasking.
And they're also saying the spectrum, what are the autism spectrum. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of high function, very intelligent people, productive members of American society who have autism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had one counselor at the school I had to fire.
What?
I pay him. Every time you meet with him, you had to give him $600. And so his thing was me, he wanted to interrogate my brain about being ADHD. That's what he wanted me to write about. I wasn't going to write about that. I was going to write about the whole controversy of spiritual gifts.
Yes, sir.
Of the gift of discernment, the gift of exhortation, all these spiritual gifts you had. And so we would go to class for a week. I had to be on the campus for a week in Virginia. And everybody leaves on Friday, right? He would make me stay up on Saturday to have a session with him. He would call the session at 9 o'clock. I would get there 20 minutes to 9 to make sure I was on time. He would come in 9:35.
Oh, no.
And I wrote a letter, and the dean is still pissed at me for causing controversy in his school. But it was one little lady, Miss Gloria Taylor, Dr. Gloria Taylor. "Young man, how are you?" I found out later she was the one that got me into school because they only took 9 students a year. Wow! And she chose me out of all the hundreds that applied, and so she became my mother. She acted like my mother and everything. And Miss Gloria Taylor, and while you pay thousands of dollars to get editors and stuff, she loved to eat like me, and we would go to the Crocker spot or wherever we wanted to go, and she edited along with me. And instead of paying $1,000 a month for an editor, I had my stuff edited. By the time we were finished, I had edited already. And when I had to defend mine, one guy who just got his doctorate, I was defending, and I had the people in the room with me, and one of the pages, he put a big question mark on there. Said, "What is this about?" I said, well, I kept wrestling with him about it, tried to finish. She said, "Wait a minute." She said, "I don't understand the relevancy of your question. I see a big question mark, and I have a big question mark for you. What is the relevancy of this?" She said, "Especially since I was the co-author with this chapter of his dissertation."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Ooh," I sat down, I didn't say nothing. He said, "I didn't mean that." She said, "No, you did mean something, or she wouldn't have brought it up."
That's right.
And so she began to tell him a new one, and the dean looked like, whoa. The dean looked like, whoa. And so then we had a guy that was an attorney in the room, had a mustache just like Jeremy's. Look, he was a black Jeremy, as a matter of fact.
That's a big mustache.
And he said he's an attorney, criminal attorney, as well as a seminary student, getting his doctorate in theology. And he said, "You seem to," he said, "Pastor Omokunde seems to be having a problem with this school. He has an advisor who," they said, "We're going to handle it, we're going to handle it." He said, "Well, while you're handling it, I'm going to be his legal advice."
Ooh.
And he wins all the big cases, big criminal cases in Virginia.
Sure.
And so they said, "Okay, it's all settled. We'll get you a new advisor." Who did they get me? Dr. Gloria Taylor, the little lady that was helping me. And I took her class. Only thing she did that was mean, she made me come up and teach her class on Thursday. Every Thursday I had to drive to Richmond, Virginia, and teach her class for 6 weeks. And it got old real quick, right? But I went and taught the class. Then I did not know she had someone sitting in the class monitoring me.
Mm-hmm.
And the person was getting pissed off because the class was enjoying the class. My class was jam-packed every Thursday. You know, I would do stuff like tell jokes that were not good.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Well, how did you?
How did I not get fired? The last joke I told, they said one more like this kind, and you're gonna have a problem. Well, I simply told a joke. The little boy was gonna be 12 tomorrow. He told his little 5-year-old brother, "I'm gonna say hell anytime I feel like it." The little boy said, "You can't say hell. Mom and Daddy gonna kill you. I'm 12 years old. I'm gonna say hell anytime I feel like it." He said, "You gonna say hell? I'm gonna say ass." He said, "You 5 years old. You can't say ass. You must be out of your mind. Mama and Daddy gonna kill you. They gonna kill you too when you say hell." Sure enough, Mama said, "My baby is 12 years old. I'm gonna fix anything you want for breakfast. What do you want for breakfast?" He said, "I don't know." She said, "Eggs, bacon, pancakes." "Oh, what the hell? Give me some Cheerios." She said, "What'd you say?" "What the hell, Mom? Give me some Cheerios." "Daddy, come downstairs." He said, "What the hell?" Give him some Cheerios. Daddy hit him in his nose. Knocked him over a chair. Mama started beating him with a belt. Grandma came down. "What's this?" He said, "What the hell, Grandma?" Whipping him with the broom. And called his teacher. Teacher came over the house and started beating him. She said, "Okay." Mama got her voice back. Oh, baby, I forgot to ask you what you want for breakfast." He said, "I don't know either, but you can bet your sweet ass it ain't no Cheerios." So bottom line, they said no more jokes like that. And I was trying to tell them that people don't know the issues in life.
Right.
Well, preacher. I mean, again, I'm interrupting you for the 97th time, but
Yeah.
preacher, I've heard about 15 different points that you've made talking today. One I hear is I heard you say more or less. Number one, don't judge me until you know me. Number two, I hear you saying, don't look at my skin color and just judge me because I'm black. Number three, don't judge me because I have a disability. In your case, it was ADHD. You don't know me. Don't judge me unless you know me. And despite these other things that you find are issues with me, such as my disability, my skin color, I may have something to bring to the table. I may have more to offer to you than you realize that I do.
Well, put it this way. I know we got a term now, I don't see color and all that. I want you to see this color. I'm black and I'm a bad MF. And so I want you to understand that very clearly, that I take pride in that because I was taught that.
No shame in that.
I was taught that I couldn't make it when they integrated the schools because I couldn't get along with other folks. And folks always would pick on me. And, I've had cops that picked on me and what have you. That's one reason I'm a chaplain now. I try to help those cops see that they're out there to actually to serve and protect, and to do certain things for people, and you don't judge a person by coming up. I mean, cops have stopped me, and I would say my name is Omokunde. They said, "Yeah, Mr. OK Monkey." I said, "Okay, fine."
No.
I remember one time a cop stopped me in the alley. I was having a child naming ceremony in the backyard in Milwaukee, and the cops started up. And the cop started talking, and one of them was slurring his words. And the cop said, "What's going on here?" I told him what was going on. And the cop said something. I said, "You really ought to be concerned that your partner is drunk as shit. And he's on duty with you. Mm-hmm. That's what you ought to be concerned with." He said, "You have a good night." And he drove off. Okay.
He got told.
And because bottom line is, now I know why he may have been drunk on duty. Okay. Now I may know why he's going through something in his family. I talked to an officer the other night who fell in love with a lady, knew she had some children, but did not know he was getting 3. He was getting 3 stepchildren at the time that he was getting married. Okay? They had one together, but then all the other teenagers showed up.
Oh.
And so they're saying
Surprise.
and one showed up with a baby. And so, and I could see why he would be drinking on the job. But anyway, I was kidding. But the bottom line is, we don't know what problems officers have and firefighters have, and the suicide rate and what have you.
Well, how is
Right.
the fire service? How do I approach this subject? Has the door been welcoming and open to you at all times in the fire service?
No,
No, I mean,
it shouldn't be, because in the fire service you have to prove it to yourself. You have to prove. Is that actually 25 minutes to 5?
yeah,
Whoa!
we've been going.
I missed the 4 o'clock when 4:30 when. Okay.
Sorry, Rev.
I know, man.
We've been going an hour and 40 minutes, but you've been going good.
Okay. At 5, I'm gonna have to run up out of here.
No, you do your thing. We'll wrap this up.
Okay, at 5. Well, I won't be going to Durham.
Not today.
I might be. No, I won't be going. But I'm gonna have to tell people why. I'll tell people I ran into a situation. There was a gunfight, and I got away. But it was about a deer, and the deer ran into a car, and they said they shot the deer, and I claimed the deer was mine because I hit him. And it was a 18-point deer.
Oh my goodness, world record.
Yeah, world record. Matter of fact, he was 6'7".
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right, 6'7" in height. And I said, okay. It had two other.
A big
Yeah.
Boone and Crockpot hunt.
Right. And then later on, we found out the deer was a she-male because the antlers fell off.
Oh, that's terrible.
And it was really a doe with antlers tied to it. Well, I'll tell you one time why dogs and cats fight all the time. I got to tell you that story later on, too. You guys have been therapeutic for me today. Nobody's ever asked me to do this. And I didn't think I wanted to do it. I tried to duck him. I said, but it's Jeremy. And you could be 103 years old. Jeremy said, remember what you said you were going to do? And he could be an old guy, and we could be using megaphones to talk. But it was going to get done.
That's right.
One of the things I like about Jeremy, if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it come hell or high water. Even
Damn
if it's
right.
wrong, he's going to do it because he said I was going to do it.
That's
Follow
Jeremy.
through.
And that's somebody you can depend on.
Well, I appreciate that.
And so, we were laughing. And matter of fact, Jeremy treats his wife like I wish I could treat mine, but I can't because it'd be a problem. He F that. What did he just say there? F that. BS. Oh, my goodness. But anyway. And she can give as well as she can take.
Well,
now.
that's the Wisconsin in her.
That's the Wisconsin. And I've been around the Wisconsin, black girls, white girls, and all kind of girls. Wisconsin, and you got to come some with Wisconsin.
Yeah, they're tough.
They tough, and they will box you.
And I will tell you this: when both mother-in-law and my wife are in the same place,
Ooh, Lord.
you typically don't find me home.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they got to establish which one is running the house at
Oh.
that particular time, and then you know you're not.
That's the German in him.
oh
that-
my
that-
gosh,
then
German
you-
Danish.
Then you know you're not. And German Danish in Wisconsin, I always have German Danish friends in Wisconsin
Yep.
because the food is endless, and the Ussingers, and then I go out into another place and get German food. And the only thing I didn't like about German food at first was I didn't like no warm potato salad.
And vinegar base. That was
I
weird.
love
And
German
vinegar
potato
cake.
salad.
But then when I got the liking German potato salad, and everything I eat in North Carolina is vinegar based.
Yeah.
So, what the heck? And we go to German restaurants, and you think about other courses have different courses. Ooh, Germans can eat all night long.
My favorite thing to get from the Milwaukee area is Kringle.
Kringle.
The OH Kringle. That is the
Out
Christy.
of
it's just
Racine.
Yeah, that's where
out of
Christy's
Racine,
from.
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where we go get Kringle. I like the pecan Kringle.
I like the cherry.
I like the cherry pecan, as a matter of fact. That's a combination.
Oh, you put two of them together?
Yeah, put two of them together and make a sandwich, and you
Sugar
got
fiend.
it. And then you get coffee or hot chocolate with it, or milk. I never really liked, but the Kringle, and then the sausages.
Yeah.
The sausages are great.
Vice
There
versa.
was another question you asked me that I skipped around.
No, it's all right.
I had a reason for skipping around.
No. I just wanted to know, how did you end up in Oxford with your own church? Because you're the pastor of the Timothy Darling Presbyterian Church here in town.
One day I woke up. Good morning. It's 17 below zero with a wind chill factor of a minus 47. I said, God, I got to get out of here. I was in a $10 million facility on Sherman Boulevard in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Loved the people. Had a pastor there that was a female, and I could be associate, I could hide, and I had to be responsible for nothing. However, we had kids like Alex in studio that would come. I didn't have a gym, and they would come to talk to the chief. They called me chief. They would come to talk to chief. Studio had a process. He was about 6'4", black guy with a process, straight hair. Played football. Always kept something going, disruptive, whatever. I told him when I was in the studio, I would hit you in the head with a damn chair. Keep effing with me here. Studio said something to me. He said, if I don't cut the fool and laugh, y'all gonna have a problem. I said, Studio, tell me what the real deal is. I was standing waiting for a bus. There was a woman across the street, had a baby in her carriage. She was playing with the baby. A car skipped on the sidewalk, drove baby and wonder through the window of the car, of the store, and they were dead on the scene. I said, I understand, Studio. Alex, what's your problem? Alex was a white boy, had a black girlfriend, and was in a black gang.
Do the math on that.
Alex,
Yeah, really.
okay, Alex didn't have stuff to eat at home. What did I do with Alex? On Wednesday nights, anybody who wanted to come to church could come. And gang members had to not wear colors or anything.
Right.
Alex was one of my bodyguards. Alex ate before the meal. I had a mess sergeant for the military cook and my stepdaughter cook. Alex would eat that, and he would carry 2 plates home. He ate 3 plates that night, okay? Alex played football. His father would not go give a damn about him. I would go to his football games. Let's see who I had next. I had Ant-Man. Ant-Man got put out of regular school. They were teasing a kid in school, a girl in school, when he was actually taking their side. But when her cousins got there, she thought that Ant-Man had been part of the guys that were bullying her. Ant-Man knocked out both of her cousins. There was blood everywhere. I said, let me have Ant-Man. Ant-Man used to sell dope on the corner in the 6th grade. Ant-Man became one of my bodyguards. See, I needed bodyguards, okay? The Vice Squad guys were friends of mine because on Sundays we would go watch football games together in the secret place. In the secret place would be the judge, the head of detectives from Chicago, and we all had something on each other. And the big executives would come, okay? Miller execs would come. Preachers, okay? I was the only preacher they would let in. The only preacher that they let in. And so when the bunnies would come, which were the strippers, they said, well, we fix your plate. See you later, bye. They would put me out. I said, daggone it. So, and what got me was we had Ed Green there. Ed was a mathematician like no other mathematician I've seen. Stroke man. 6'8", played ball at high school ball, All-American. Stroke man had the little thing where you had to talk through. He had throat cancer. And he loved me. Stroke man was like to kiss you on the top of the head. I hated that shit. Stroke man, that's how he loved, he loved me. We would all be watching the game. Ed Green would get drunk the first half, wake up, be raised to hell the second half, okay? You caught him the second half of the game. And Stroke man wasn't saying something. And Stroke man died shortly thereafter, but he wasn't saying stuff. And so I figured, I talked to my buddy Clay, said, what's wrong with Stroke? He said, I don't know, I'm going to check him out. Clay was the brains of the whole operation. We had what we call an ad hoc holiday party committee. We would have a party every year where we bring guys off the street, homeless and everybody, and executives to the party. Dancing, music, 7-course meal, turkeys, beef. The chef would be whatever the brand names I didn't know. I learned names like Chivas Regal, Tanqueray, or Absolute Vodka. I learned all those things, right? And Stroke Man wasn't saying nothing. Ed Green woke up. Said, somebody go get me some damn beer at the store. Here's my money. He would always give more money than he had because he was a gambler. He gambled at night. That's why he slept. He first got drunk, slept the first half of the game because he had been gambling on Saturday night. Won about $4,000-5,000. Okay?
Wow.
And he said, "And somebody get this motherfucker some batteries." and then when he came back, he came back, stroked me and said, "Again, you ain't shit." Those were the friends I had.
Shit.
And they weren't the typical church people.
Right.
They were the friends I had. But they all respected Rev. And they all wanted to hear the word from Rev. Okay?
Right.
So I had to have a word that they could understand. If I was going to give them the knowledge, if I was going to give them the, what's that word? Elixir. If I was going to give them the elixir of Christ, I had to put it in a cup that they understood,
Right.
that they could drink out of.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And that's one of the things that they understood about me. So if I had a major program, they were all there. As a matter of fact, I would go to church. I said, there's something bothering me. There's a little boy that's tongue-tied, little blind kid. And I said, people are not paying attention to that boy's a genius. And I said, that's bothering me. Little Sammy it's bothering me. And little Sammy said, Chief, I want you, yeah, okay. I want you to hear something. And he had learned how to play Mississippi Stop on the violin. That's what everybody learns, Mississippi Stop. Because I learned it too. I would say, stop. Just stop. Please stop. But anyway, so what happens? Little Sammy was tongue-tied, and we would have joys and concerns. And so I heard little Sammy was about to be a tiger cub. Okay, remember my granddad in Boy Scouts, right? Mm-hmm. Little Sammy was about to be a tiger cub. He didn't have no one to walk across him and meet him at the other side of the bridge. The tiger cubs come across the bridge and someone meets them. So we were in South Milwaukee. I'm in there, black as car tires. And Sammy is a little blind boy.
German descent, probably.
German descent. And I'm meeting him on the other side as he comes across the bridge from a tiger cub to a Weeblos, right? Well, that Sunday in church, we had joys and concerns. Sammy was tongue-tied, and he couldn't talk. And so Sammy raised his hand and asked me to come up front with him. We had been practicing something. So they said, Sammy, what is your joy? And Sammy stepped to the mic and said, ventriloquism. They said, what? I said ventriloquism. They said, Sammy, you can't say that word. I said it. And so I said, by the way, Sammy, what are you doing? On the table in the front of the church, I had his whole Boy Scout uniform laid out for him. My granddaddy said, buy that for him.
Wow.
And so what he said, I said, we got a lunch day. Come on, we got to leave church early. Where did we go? We went and had lunch with Bob Euchre.
Bob Euchre, the sports announcer.
Yeah,
guy.
Bob Euchre.
Yeah.
We were in the booth with Bob Euchre.
Oh, no kidding.
And
He was the Milwaukee Brewers. That's
Yeah.
right. Yes, he was.
Yeah,
wasn't
he-
he?
Milwaukee Braves, wasn't it?
and
the
the Brewers too.
Okay.
Bob Euchre. So we were in the box with Bob Euchre. And Sammy was talking to Bob Euchre. And then I went, because at that time I was doing photography for black newspapers too in
Okay.
Milwaukee.
Well, you hardly ever sleep.
No. And so what happened was we were in the press box, and Sam and I could eat. We could eat anything we wanted to eat because the Brewers, they fed people before the game up there. You had 7-course meals, new ice creams came out, whatever you wanted you could have.
Nice.
And the girls would come and get me who worked in the kitchen and say, the pretzels are ready, or we got bratwurst ready now. I just finished eating. And so I said, Sammy, as an umpire, let me teach you something. Umpire was saying things Sammy wanted to say. I said, strike! On the right hand, always, Sammy. Okay. Ball. And then you say 1-1. He say, okay, but he got three came up on this side. I said, that's 3 balls. He said he had 2 on that hand. I said, no, you don't have to do that now. You can do that, but you do this. Why do you do that? It's a full count. 3 and 2 is a full count. And the umpires do like that. 3 balls, 2 strikes.
I never knew that. So you just taught me something.
And so Sammy was walking around talking about full count. And so Sammy now is an actor, by the way, doing really well.
Nice.
One day Sammy got mad. I got mad with Sammy. Sammy was getting on my last nerve. And we looked out, there were buzzards sitting all on the wires. And I said, the buzzards are for you. And Sammy, I really shouldn't have done that to that boy. That boy, for about 2 years, he was going through something about them buzzards.
Well, Rev, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What was the last book besides the Bible that you read?
Last book.
Yeah.
I don't like to read books. You know what I learned in the doctoral program? You read what you have to read and to hell with the rest of the book.
And I love that.
Okay. Last book.
Yes, sir.
Actually, the last book I read was about Egbe. In Nigeria is the belief that you have a second person in heaven that knows what you're supposed to be doing here. And your Egbe is a certain society. And matter of fact, they kind of initiated me about 2 weeks ago into that society. And what you started paying attention to is what would my heavenly friends want me to be doing here. And you get your behavior in check. Okay?
Wow.
You get your behavior in check because they're little friends in heaven. And you get a fan. It's with cowrie shells on it to represent your friends in heaven, and they give you that. And one of the chiefs from Nigeria came, and I went there just to see him, and I mean, they pulled out a seat for me. I got to eat. They wanted me to eat first. They wanted me to talk to them, and I got treated with the respect like I've never had before. Because they said, we feel that your Egbe is so wise. You got little wise people running around in heaven. And so that's why you're going to be wise on earth. I said, okay, fine. But anyway, I read that one. Then I read one about plants that have medicinal value in them.
Right.
That are in your backyard.
Right. The
Okay.
dandelions, they say, are very.
Yeah. Well, dandelion wine is what helped me move my house one time. Mother Modupe in Indiana. I went to see Mother Modupe, and she would always make me a pie or something, and she made me dandelion wine, and I was sitting out. I just tasted a little bit, and I had nobody. I had a truck, nobody to help me move. Some guys came by. I said, "What you drinking, man?" I gave them a drink. I said, "Okay, will you help me put something in the truck?" They said, "Okay, we're gonna ride with you," because they thought I had the wine with me. And so we got over there, unload the room. They said, "Where the wine?" I said, "The other place. Let's go back over there then." We went back over there. We drank some more wine. Let's load up a truck. Can you stay for 5 minutes? Yeah, man, give us more of that wine. And well, they was lit by the time we finished, but
But you got it moved.
we moved the whole house drinking dandelion wine.
That's awesome.
And so the little Sammys of the world is what I remember. And he called me last year and said, "You know what? I now realize those buzzards were for you." I said, "Yeah, you finally found that out." Huh? And so he's acting now. Hollywood. He's been in some plays, theater and stuff. And but it all began. Remember, he couldn't talk, and the reason I helped him because I couldn't talk as a kid. And what Mr. Walter Buck Lennon of the Homestead Grade Negro League lived down the street from me. He's the one that taught me how to bat left-handed because I throw right-handed, but I bat left-handed.
Okay.
And it worked well on the tennis court. His wife, his first wife, Miss Sarah Lennon, said, "What you do?" So my grandmom then made me a robe to preach in at 5 years old. Okay, made me a robe. They lined up chairs in the backyard. Okay, lined up chairs in the backyard, and tied my dog Lassie to a rope. Lassie chewed the rope, ran away, joined another church. They said. No, Lassie hated me, really. Because Lassie had to listen to all the sermons. And Lassie went and stayed with my aunt down the street. I had to only, everybody called in that dog, Rocky, Spot, here, Spot. The dog went up to Lassie. Shit, I ain't going up there.
I'm tired of this.
Tired of this jackleg preaching. I can't stand it. So what happened was, then I began to talk after that. I actually began to talk after that. But there's another story. There's another story that I told, and I got in trouble for this one too. And I'm glad this podcast, people are not going to like me, but I don't care because this is my therapy, and it doesn't cost me $125 an hour.
Amen.
Amen. Firehouse Kitchen.
Guy said, get on board with your bad ass. Come here, damn it. You almost missed the train. Get on in there. All aboard? No, I ain't stopping for you. Catch the next train. Oh, go to hell. Catch the next train. And Mama said, wait a minute. She said, you are on timeout. Come in this room and sit down right now. And you on timeout for an hour. Now, until you can go out and play like you got some sense. Boy went back out. Good morning, sir, and welcome aboard. She said, no, that's all right. How you having a fine day, ma'am? Let me help you with your bag, please. Thank you. Children, you don't have to run. We're going to hold the train for you. Are you going on a field trip? Well, I hope you have a good time. He said, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my train. He said, for all of you are concerned about that hour delay, see the bitch in the wonder.
Oh,
Well, Rev, that's a great stopping point right there.
So, I have both of these sides of me, and that's Don Marie's trying to get those sides out of me. But when I retire, oh boy, I'm gonna tell some stories.
Well, you're going to retire here pretty soon, from what you say. I'm looking forward to the book when you write it. I
Yeah.
hope you put it down quickly. As we close this podcast out, we have to thank some partners that go up and down the road with us. Seek Thermal Imagers, cost-effective thermal imaging solutions for every firefighter on the rig. Crestar firefighting equipment, their nozzles are amazing. There's no frills, no shrills. It's just you just show up and go to work and flow water. Old Pappy's Tool Lube, Phil, don't be a fool.
Lube your tool.
And Thompson Multimedia, Shooter Thompson from If You Can Imagine It. David can do it over at Thompson Multimedia, from decals, wraps, trophies, awards, website designs, all that good stuff. He's an instructor with the cadre here. And lastly, Akron Brass. One thing I want to say as we close out here, Tunnels to Tower. We did the deal with Mike Perrone. We've lined up a couple trainings that we're going to do. We're going to teach and charge people admission, and then what we're going to do is all the proceeds are going to go straight to Tunnels to Tower. It's something that I've looked into, and want to encourage you to look up T2T. That's T, the number 2, T.org. If you want to help your brother fireman, your brother EMS or sister fireman or sister EMS, or even law enforcement, or a family that is in the military that needs help, you can donate just $11 a month, and it makes a huge difference.
Hey, puppy.
But that's one important thing that I feel that I've got a commitment to myself. I've already started for 2023 is to get at least 50 people to donate $11 a month to further the cause. So if that is something that you're able to do, go to the number 2T.org.
I can do that.
You
I
can
was
do
just
that.
recently asked to, get involved with Tunnel to Towers, and I was very honored when I was asked to do so. And
Your
I'm
story is
looking forward to
amazing.
that. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
His story is amazing, and that's where I wanted to close
What's
today's
Tunnels to
podcast.
Towers?
Tunnel to Towers is, the Tunnel to Towers thing is about a man who, Stephen Siller, who was a Brooklyn firefighter in the FDNY. He ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to get to the World Trade Center towers on 9/11/2001, and subsequently the firefighter lost his life, and that's what his story was the initiating factor for the for that charity to be started. But I said all that to say this, Reverend. Firefighter Stiller has a story. My good friend Hector Torado, who died on 9/11, also has a story. And Jeremy is, bringing to light, hey, Phil, you got a story as well, so might as well pass it along. And I said all that to say this. It's been a great honor to be in your presence today, Rev. It's always good to hear other people's perspective about life and where they've come from and what they have to offer. We lack mentorship in this world amongst men, amongst firefighters, amongst paramedics. And it's just been wonderful to hear your story because I feel like I'm in the great presence of a great mentor today. And it's just been thrilling to hear about how you have mentored others throughout your 75 years.
Well, one of the things as I say today, like I said, I didn't want to come in and want to talk about myself, but this is extraordinary. And I see the technology. I'm looking at lights and stuff as a retired as a photographer. A lot of people want a pastor to be a certain way. Will stick up your butt or
Stick in the mud.
Stick in the mud or what have you. I follow Matthew 25. When I was hungry, you fed me.
Yes, sir.
When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was sick, you healed me. And I'm not saying I'm giving stuff to people who won't work. I'm saying that my concept is that do unto others as you will have them do unto you.
You've been a great mentor to me, and I want to thank you. You've been inspirational also.
I appreciate that.
I love you.
And my thing is reach people who they'd never read the Bible. You're the only Bible they're going to read. And if you're the only Bible they're going to read, do something. I got a question on my exam when they were trying to throw me in my one of the exams. In the Presbyterian Church USA, you have to take 5 major exams to be a pastor. You have to have a master. You have to have a master's of divinity, and then you had to take 5 major exams, ordination exams. One of them I kept flunking because I did it on purpose. One of them, I said things go better with God, and that was I exegeted the text from the Old Testament and did everything right, but somebody was from Newbern, North Carolina, that read that text. They read them from all over the country. Okay, we know things go better with Coke is the thing. So they said, what about Pepsi, and flunked me.
Oh.
And so I said, it wasn't about Pepsi, idiot. It was about helping people and what God can do. And so when they read it before, I got some other people to read it, they passed me. Okay. And then the theology exam, they wanted to test me about idolatry. And so I asked them in Milwaukee, I said, the idolatry mean that I got a dashiki on or I got some beads around my neck when I came in here? Or what about the idolatry is that you schedule your worship service around Green Bay Packer games? Okay? And that the soccer league plays at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Okay? Yeah. Or your tea time is 10:30 on Sunday morning and church is at 11. Well, so a lot of people have said, well, some people have called me the cussing preacher before. Other people have said he's not like most pastors, And for those kind of folk, I just like to simply tell them, I don't care what you think. So bottom line is that church, I do a thing at church, this is not your daddy's Oldsmobile. Okay? When the last time, great car, but when the last time you seen Oldsmobiles riding around up and down like they used to? You can go to the junkyard now and crank up any Oldsmobile that's in the junkyard. But it's in the junkyard. And so my thing is that the church has to be the church to everybody. The church has to be the church that understands what's going on in the world. The theologian said, one theologian said, you preach with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other hand. And until you can do that, then you go get a job at the post office somewhere. You don't have no business in the church. I have people in church now that are grieving because their children are strung out on drugs. At first, we used to badger them about their children strung out on drugs. The first thing I said in church today was, bring your children back home one way or another. And so I'm baptizing 5 babies on Christmas Eve.
At the church in Oxford?
At the church in Oxford.
Awesome.
and 5 families that would be there. And both sides of the family would be there. See, I learned the trick. Get the children involved. Mom and dad are going to show up, and grandmas and grandpas are definitely going to show up.
Right.
And then you can do something. They were talking to me about guys in church with their pants sagging. Well, it's like fishing. If you don't catch them, you can't clean them. And you gotta figure out a way to catch them and get them in church. So that church in Milwaukee, even though I hate leaving it, I wanted some heat. I wanted to come south. I wanted some heat. Studio and Ant-Man and Alex and all those guys made me what I am. And little Sammy made me what I am. Ant-Man was selling dope on the street. Studio, all those guys. But then growing up in Rocky Mount, I learned a lesson. Treat everybody with respect. I could go anywhere in town. Other guys couldn't go in South Rocky Mount. Some couldn't go on Happy Hill. I could go on Happy Hill because I had some cousins living on Happy Hill. I go in South Rocky Mount because I dated a girl who had braces on her legs. And boy, later on, when she got them braces off, couldn't googly moogly. But anyway.
She was running.
Her back was crooked like a question mark.
I know. And so, as a matter of fact, I helped do her funeral about last year. But I used to walk her home from school every day and just talk to her. And so bottom line is also when there's a place called Caledonia in North Carolina that was a reformatory school. And at Caledonia, you worked on the streets and the roads with them water moccasins and stuff. And when you came back, you had to be in the same grade before you left. There wasn't no, GED programs and stuff. And so what happened, my grandma would send 3 or 4 sandwiches to school with me every day. And peanut butter and jelly or turkey and mayonnaise or chicken salad and whatever. And then in the summertime or spring, she would put ice cubes of Kool-Aid. She would make them in a tray and open the tray up and put them in a jar. So by lunchtime, I had ice cubes still, but I had nice Kool-Aid to pass around to my friends. Who were my friends? The guys from Caledonia, Billy Boone and Peaches. Billy Boone and Peaches were, in about the 5th grade, they were 2 years older than what you should be in the 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
And so they taught me how to box.
You didn't need any help being mean.
Willingly learn how to box, or they taught you?
They taught me how to box. I mean, seriously, how to box. And so what would happen, I never liked bullies. And I would always challenge the bullies. And the bullies would go with a broken nose or eyes shut by the time I finished with them. And they were trying to figure out, how that little guy do that? Billy Boone was little. Peaches was bigger. And Peaches, I had a game called the Zero Game. We put the zero things on our head, you know, those note things that put around so the paper don't tear? We put them on my head. I had a guy named Jungle Jim who was my warlord in the game with me. I ran, and he did everything. Peaches whooped his ass one day so bad, I started crying. And so I realized my gang days were over. Okay, Peaches took over the game, right? Peaches taught me a lot of stuff.
You got pushed out.
Yeah, but Peaches taught me because I just said, hey, I got some sandwich, let's eat. And every day, you got some sandwich? Yep, let's eat. And we sat down, we would talk. Peaches taught me another strategy. What I would do, Philip would be bigger than me and would be bullying me. I would knock on the door. It says, Philip's mama here? And I would talk to Philip's mama. Say, my folks wanted to call the police to Philip, but I want Philip to be my friend. And my asthma, and he keep jumping on me, and I be having an asthma attack. And so, and she said, you will have to worry about Philip no more ever jumping on you, young man. And who was your dad? Tom Stiff, my granddad. Tom Stiff is your daddy? Yes, ma'am. And she said, I know Cindy, your grandmama. I thank you. And I would go get your aunt. I said, I talked to Philip, mama. You her sister? Yes. How you doing, boy? What's your name? I told her. And Philip, she said, I'm calling her right now. So next day you had a decision to make. And by the time you made the decision, I had done hit you in the solar plexus. I called you out first to fight. Hit you in the solar plexus. one key thing: don't go to no daddies. I went to Joe Bullock's daddy about Joe Bullock. See, Joe Bullock could whoop me. He was left-handed. I didn't know how to box left-handed people. And Joe Bullock's daddy said he should have whooped your ass. And so Joe Bullock came back and did whoop my ass.
Oh, no.
And so I said, "Oh, no, go to the daddies. Use your strategy with the mamas. don't go to no daddies." And so that's what I learned that from Peaches and Billy Boone. And so my thing is that I've been blessed because I had people that have kept me alive in my community. And one of the things they know, I'll take a whipping to be your friend.
Right.
And I took some whippings to be guys' friends. I played baseball with guys that didn't want me to play with them. And the coach wanted me to play with them because I was a left-hand batter. And they called you a sissy if you batted left-handed in those days. But now they pay people millions of dollars to bat left-handed.
It's a crazy world, isn't
It's
it?
a crazy world. And I played Pony League with the thugs. And so when I went to high school, I made a joke with the coaches. You see me and coaches didn't get along well. I made a joke. He said, "Let's run the laps." Laps? Where the balls and the bats, man? Let's play baseball. I was just kidding. He stopped and said, I can't coach you. Go back and play with the grown men you've been playing with. So I went back and played with the grown men I was playing with. Last story, I think, my granddaddy had gotten Satchel Paige to come to town.
Oh, the pitcher,
Yeah,
I know
to come to
Satchel
town.
Paige, Yeah.
And Satchel Paige was pitching, and he stopped, and they went and got on the bus, and the bus cranked up, and the bus started moving. And I got on the bus with my granddaddy. Satchel Paige said, "The folk in the jungle are not as wild as your pitchers. And so I'm not going to go back out there with your pitchers hurting my players." And so the deal was Satchel Paige would pitch for both teams. Mm-hmm. And so when our batters came up, he struck out two, and then he threw his hesitation pitch that he had. They would hit it right back to him. So on the field was Satchel Paige, the catcher, and the first baseman. And so
That's all you needed.
They hit him. He threw it to first base, and that was it. I saw some great ball players. The great Chuck Hennon was from Rocky Mount. Chuck Hennon played for the Washington Senators. Chuck Hennon in the park named after my granddaddy. Chuck Hennon, the guys wouldn't let Chuck Hennon play because they said they finally cut a deal. Chuck Hennon, if he bought all the baseballs, he could play. Because when he hit a home run, he wouldn't hit it out the park. He would hit it out the park about 2 miles down into the Tar River. And so Chuck Hennon, and I lived on the street with these folks, with Chuck Hennon, and so I had a glorious life.
Sounds like it.
Glorious life in Rocky Mount. I call Rocky Mount the Holy Land. My uncle's service station was right over here. The first Hardee's ever in the world was right here.
What?
The first Hardee's was in Rocky Mount.
I didn't
North
know
Carolina.
Never knew that
Learned
either.
something new.
And them charbroil, you can see the flames coming up. And guess what? Out of all the fights we've had with white kids and stuff, Hardee's was a no fighting ground.
Holy ground.
Holy ground. Black kids and white kids got together, took our dates to Hardee's. The burgers was about big as a plate now. And I don't know how they made all that bread to put over top of one of them. But Hardee's, that charcoal broil. And then one of my best friends was Jimmy Clack. Jimmy Clack was the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers during the heyday. And in high school, he would tell stories about what he was doing. I would make up lies about what I was doing on the football team. And then there was Danny Talbot, who was a star quarterback in Rocky Mount. And then there was Bobby First. You ever seen Henson in First?
Yeah.
Bobby First would come next door, and Miss Cogdale would keep him, the black lady, and he wasn't supposed to come outside. But he would come outside, we would play no man's football, give him the football, and we beat the other team. And he'd be his own team.
Wow.
And Bobby First used to ask about me. When I was ready to really talk to Bobby First again, but see, at Bar Mitzvah, you couldn't talk to the black kids anymore.
Oh.
After you did Bar Mitzvah, you couldn't
Yeah.
talk to us anymore. But I loved playing with him growing up, and I would often think about him. Later on, when I did the research, my uncle worked for his granddaddy.
Oh, wow.
at Jake Roseman and Levy Men's store.
Wow.
Speaking of which, now that I'm getting up, the night of when Martin Luther King came, I think I had my first Roseman and Levy suit that my uncle got. I had Buster Brown shoes. Buster Brown was famous shoes
Telling
in
his
North
age.
Carolina.
Yeah, you're telling your age
Buster
without
Brown
telling
shoes.
your age.
I tied a Windsor knot. My grandmama washed and styled my underwear. I had olive oil in my hair.
Yeah.
And I was cooler than the board. I was cleaner than the Board of Health. And that's what I remember when King came also that night.
Wow.
So I give honor to my ancestors who kept me, came to Springfield, Illinois, got me, brought me back here, brought me to North Carolina. My mother worked in D.C., and I met my father when I was 25 years old.
Wow. What a story, Rev. I
Well,
mean,
we love you, and we cannot thank you
we-
enough for being a mentor.
it has
to
been-
us.
Y'all crank me up, so
Thank
you
you for
got
being so
so you
inspirational.
now you know what you don't crank me up because I will run and run and run.
Well,
I
it's
can't
like a
run out
dog.
of gas. No.
well, Dawn Marie's going to be mad that you're not home, so we're going to close this out.
Don Marie is
with-
working.
Oh, she's working? Well, that's good. Joe Rogan said it best, and I think this is very apropos. 100% of the haters in the world are unrealized potential.
Yep.
100% of all the haters in the world are unrealized potential. With that, we bid you adieu. We'll talk to y'all next month.